Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers! Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we see on a month-to-month basis. It's time to crack open our...
Movie
Memoirs! Alright, so, Dragon, right off the top, it's been a rough month, just in general. We've lost a couple people. Also, Hollywood itself, not doing so great. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, the fact that no blockbusters besides SpiderVerse seem to be getting off the ground at all this summer. But before that, of course, Dragon, as we usually do, we're going to segue. We're going to talk about the deaths first, because not too many big ones in regards to numbers, but the big ones that we did get were kind of heavy hitters. So John Romita Sr., I'll kind of let you take the lead on this one. I mean, obviously I know of him, but I don't really think I'm too well versed on his particular work to really speak too much on him.
Say, I love John Romita Sr. I was lucky enough to meet him, and it's under miraculous circumstances, I must admit, kind of serendipitous circumstances, just in terms of, I forget if I was just he wasn't the main priority, and it's kind of happened by, oh, look, John Romita Sr. I just kind of walked up to him, there's no line or anything, just, oh, wow, no one's seeing John Romita Sr., that's rare. And this probably the definitive Spider-Man artist, just a swell guy. He's an artist, man. He's a guy he relishes his craft and everything. Just this guy is. He gave us the Kingpin. He gave essentially, to put in SpiderVerse terms, he gave us all the canon events of Spider-Man. Pretty much, he gave us the introduction to Mary Jane, the death of both Stacys, and of course, Spider-Man No More. And that's what I'm saying. Beyond that, I mean, again, he's a huge spoke in the wheel for Daredevil. But again,
honestly, now that you bring all that stuff up, that's actually some of the very few Marvel comic stuff that I'm actually very familiar with, as you know.
That's what I'm saying. So, he became. It's like how I say Riley Brown's the definitive Deadpool artist, only tenfold with John Romita Sr. He's the guy who, when Ditko left, Romita picked up the slack for a long time, and before he was just happy doing Daredevil, and then basically, hey, we need you on Spider-Man. He answered the call. He didn't even want to do Spider-Man, but he did it, and he did amazing with that. That's something he didn't want to do. Dear God, I mean, he became literally for a while the letterhead, every Spider-Man they used in all the marketing and everything from that period, it was John Romita Sr.'s Spider-Man. You know? I mean, you really didn't change that Spider-Man. At the very least, the artists that took over after Romita Sr., they were making themselves look like Romita Sr. That style didn't really change until Todd McFarlane rolls around.
Right, yeah.
That's pretty much the house style. This is how Spider-Man looks.
Exactly.
So again, I owe this man a great debt of gratitude. We don't have the Kingpin with that, and we don't have Daredevil jumping, looking as dynamic as he does, and we do not have Spider-Man as we know and love him in the most dramatic, awesome portions of that character's story. So he will absolutely be missed. My heart goes out to his son, whose son's also a wonderful artist in his own right, who's very much like father, like son. Just Romita Sr.'s the good man. He'll be tremendously missed.
Well said. All right, and another just huge. I mean, this guy's an icon. And this was also one of those things where it's he's getting up there in age. Okay, we were all kind of worried about him. And Code Geese anime fan says R.I.P. Alan Arkin, a great actor with a strong filmography, very much so. I mean, up until literally last year, this guy was working, man. I mean, he was the best, one of the best parts of the new Minions movie. He was also in Dumbo. Remember that he was in Dumbo, Dragon?
We're trying to uplift the man's legacy.
I know. I'm sorry. But in all seriousness, I'll let you talk about the Kaminsky method shortly. But I want to highlight Little Miss Sunshine because that is the role that I will always really know.
That's probably the best thing that he's done, to be frank.
And of course, the thing that won him the Oscar, too. But Little Miss Sunshine, I mean, while I still have this weird thing in my head with the Little Miss Sunshine Oscar thing where it's I honestly, as great as Arkin is in that movie, and he is wonderful, I honestly think I would have nominated either Steve Carell or Paul Dano in the Best Supporting Actor category before him. But that just goes to show that's not a slight on him. That just goes to show how stacked that movie's cast was.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just one of the seminal like grumpy grandpa figures in like 21st century film, I would say, is that character.
It's like the only other person who could have possibly played that role was George Carlin.
Right, yeah. That, and you know what? It's funny you mentioned that because in my mind, I think that role and then George Carlin in Jersey Girl kind of like they're very similar beats, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the only other man who possibly could have played that role. I'm pretty sure it was. I forget if that was after George Carlin or not. After his time, I forget when.
It was after. Yeah, it was after he died.
It was okay. Well, we can't get George Carlin. Who's the next best actor we can possibly get for this role? Alan Arkin, you did so good. He won an Oscar. Did he win the Oscar? Or was he nominated for?
He won.
Very good. Good on you, Mr. Arkin. So
now, if we could just get Paul Dano a nomination, perhaps for something,
that
would be wonderful.
He's a young man, Tiki. He's got plenty of time. We'll get there.
I know.
Anyway, but yeah, Alan Arkin, I mean, he's popped up in so many things. But he's always been kind of like he's a character actor in the finest sense, but not a character actor in terms of like Transformer roles. Character actor in terms of like he pops up like a well-loved bad penny, you know.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Of course, I think the most another Oscar kind of contender sort of thing they did, not in terms of performance per se, but in terms of like an Oscar-nominated film. He was in Argo. That was a recent boon for him. But beyond that, for me, I'm always going to remember him for a couple of things. The first thing I ever saw him in, I suspect maybe you also saw him in first, unconsciously, because again, it was just him being in character actor mode, given where we know him these days. He was in Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, I think that's probably like one of the things that 90s kids know him from.
Yeah, just being really like, kind of casually impressed by the
time. I know, right?
Oh, look, it's us. It's just.
I feel like Vincent Price is always like the one that people are like, yeah, I remember Vincent Price was in Edward Scissorhands, but no one ever thinks that Alan Arkin was too.
Yep. Of course. I mean, the saddest thing with Alan Arkin's passing for me is that literally like the Sunday before he died, I was rewatching his episode of The Muppet Show.
Yeah,
I was showing a buddy of mine. I was basically showing the Muppet stuff that he had not seen, which he pretty much has a large blind spot. I don't know if he's ever seen the Muppet Show, at least blind spots in the Muppet Show. So he never saw the Alan Arkin.
I mean, I still have a lot of blind spots with the Muppet Show.
Yeah. So yeah, so I showed it to him, and he liked it and everything. So I've seen him pop in many things over the years. I mean, some good, some bad, some in the middle. Like Get Smart, for example. I love Get Smart, the TV show. He played the chief in the kind of movie that was kind of a remake of it.
Mm-hmm.
He was great in terms of if you're gonna replicate the Get Smart cast, they did a great job in casting. You had Steve. He gets paired up with Steve Carell a lot, as you can probably tell.
He does, yeah.
Mostly because of Little Miss Sunshine. You got Little Miss Sunshine. You got Get Smart. You have Burt Wonderstone, and
right.
Even to the end, you have Rise of Gru.
I'm
saying these two guys were in each other's lives very often, but you know what? They paired really nicely. They had a lot of there's a lot of good stuff there.
Kogi says, I think Get Smart was the first film I saw him in.
Yeah, that was like the first time where it's like Alan Arkin, the bankable. Like, okay, that's when it's like at a point you finally recognize you're kind of wise to. Okay, that's the character actor I've seen all these other pieces. That's him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the Santa Claus. Everyone year rounds, depending if you go for the full binge on Santa Claus, not the TV show. It's going to be you'll have.
I still have not watched a single frame of that TV show.
Don't do it. And
I'm not going to.
I have terrible news. They greenlit it for a second season.
Oh God! Oh no.
Anyway, but yeah. So most recently, though, one of the last things he did aside from Rise of Gru was the Kosinski method. One of the recent things Alan Arkin did. And this...
I've seen the first season. I need to catch up on it.
Yeah, you got to watch... I know it's going to sound weird, and if you watch it, you'll know why, but let's just say you got to watch all 3 seasons, okay? Even though you're probably going to wonder why at a certain point.
I mean, I pretty much know the trajectory of what happens in the 3 seasons, so I know why season 3 in particular would be something to watch.
That's the thing. I mean, I'll just say, without getting the specifics... The last monologue of the Kosinski method is Michael Douglas's finest moment of acting. One of his finest moments of acting. I mean, in terms of like a lifetime performance, possibly if you watch it, it's really good. But yeah. So Alan Alan Arkin basically kind of plays like a takeoff of Norman Lear, because his name is Norman something in that show. It's been a while, because obviously Sandy Kosminski is kind of the namesake character, so that name's it right off the bat. But yes, Norman is essentially kind of like what if you had kind of a more folksy Alan Arkin kind of version of Norman Lear, but more as a producer than like a showrunner, which is what Norman Lear is. But again, a guy who's like really up there in age, who's like been there, has all these connections through Hollywood and everything. And he's just a real soul-of-the-earth guy. And so Alan Arkin has played that role wonderfully, and he plays like a guy who's been in the business. And he's been given a couple of those roles, but that's the role that really sung for him. And we gave him some nice stuff to do there. And I just also want to mention, too, his son, really talented as well. He put a lot of good out into old Hollywood. He's got a representation of the best of Hollywood, in a sense. You know, he gave gave breath to Adam Arkin, who's a really good director.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to shout that out, but yeah, so again, Alan Arkin's absolutely going to be missed. And also, with his appearance in The Muppets, of course, revived The Muppets in a sense in The Muppets in 2011. He was the tour guide.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Dragon, you looked at the news in Hollywood recently.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff has been bombing, right?
It's a question of how much of it is. Look, I scoff at the box office completely these days, because ever since the pandemic, that was the start of it, but then it's just been getting, for other reasons. The start of it was the pandemic put a hurt on the industry as a whole in terms of finances. And I think any way you shape it, getting back to the point at which we were is still like a long road ahead. Now the industry's changed with the advent of
I think the problem is things are backsliding from last year, though.
Yeah.
And honestly, what I really hope is the final outcome of all this, because literally everything this month, besides SpiderVerse, even movies that started out doing well, like Transformers, started out opening weekend box office pretty solid, but then it just dropped like a lead balloon. And I feel like the same thing happened with a lot of other movies besides SpiderVerse, which very frustratingly has its own set of problems that we'll get to.
Well, yeah, honestly, Tiki, from what I understand, Kevin Smith's kind of put it somewhat of a not like a big point of it. He's just made the observation that because he owns a movie theater with the Smodcast Theater. He the kids' movies are doing gangbusters in his movie theater, and his movie theater is not a successful movie theater at all. That's the whole point. Like he does shows where basically does like his podcast and live shows there and such, and screenings. And beyond that, you would have like it is a functioning movie theater. So the regular movies, but even the most popular, and when he got Avatar, didn't do great there. But
that's actually crazy.
I know, right? That's the thing. So he does not have.
I was like in the area at all. I would make a point, even if I knew he wasn't going to be there. I would make it like just to say that you did it. Like, yeah, I went to the Smod Castle.
Yeah, which is excellent. I love the fact that he owns that movie theater now, and it's in New Jersey. But
I think it's a combination of two things. Number one, just frankly, way too many movies are coming out like right next to each other. Yeah. There's like no breathing room.
They're canceling each other out. That's a big thing that's happening.
And I realized that's always kind of been the thing with summer movies, at least as far back as like when I was in high school, like 2007, 2008. It would always be like you would get at least one big release. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, every week wasn't like a big tent pole, right? Like I feel like every single week this month has been tent pole releases, not just like, oh, it's a like a lower tier summer movie I can think of is like in 2008, I believe the first weekend was Iron Man, and then the second weekend was Speed Racer. Really exciting movie. I love Speed Racer, honestly, but you know what I'm saying? It's not like the same tier of tent pole. Whereas it really feels, and it's going to feel even more like this in July. So July is going to be really interesting to track. Like, all these movies are just coming up. Like, the art of counter-programming, Dragon. I think that's what we're missing here. That's what we're missing.
I mean, it really feels like it used to be a thing of like, oh yeah, the studios will compete occasionally, but right now it's just there is a matter of everyone is utterly canceling each other out, but I think a lot of it is driven by desperation to get back to the box office we had pre-pandemic, in which the numbers skyrocketed and were like record-breaking, and now it's just like, well, it's made a lot of money considerably, but hasn't really breaking the worldwide records like we used to do.
I also think a big problem, a huge problem that I really hope Hollywood just freaking wakes up and recognizes is the fact that literally all of these damn movies, besides like something like Asteroid City, which Asteroid City, like spoiler alert for this Memoirs, it is my favorite movie of the year so far. I love it. It looks so good on just a cinematography color level. It's such an eye-pleasing movie. It was made for $20 million damn dollars, Dragon.
Yeah,
and I think that tells you all you need to know. It's like, we don't need to be shoving fucking 200 million, 150 million. Like, these budgets don't need to be that big.
That's
like,
true.
you can make, if you have a director with skill, and not every director has to be Wes Anderson. I understand that's an acquired taste. But if you have a director with skill, you should be able to. And I also just think that movies should be just in general more small scale and personal, because for me, that's what I attach myself to. Like we just talked yesterday about like Dial of Destiny. If Dial of Destiny was a more scaled back personal story, I feel like that would have been all the better for it. But instead, Dial of Destiny was like this big globe trotting, like crazy adventure, literally probably the most locations out of any Indiana Jones movie, and that's just not the direction they should have gone in with that.
Yeah, it's getting pretty bad just in terms of like the competition. You're right. We can absolutely scale things, but look at Deadpool. Like back in 2016, it was a very small budget. Look how amazing that film is, and even better than the first movie.
Exactly.
Better than the second movie, I should say. Which again got a bigger budget, not a crazy bigger budget, but still a bigger budget by comparison. So yeah, it's just, it goes to show you don't need to impress. I mean, so we would say this about the MCU for years. Like, we had to scale back the stakes, and we don't need to throw more at the screen. I mean, SpiderVerse is an exception, but we're going to see the cost of that exception.
yeah.
It was an exception at a cost.
Shout out some comments here. Let's see. Kogi says, I thought The Flash had potential to be big because it's being hyped as one of the best superhero films because it had Batman in it. We'll get to it. I actually think the hype, I just don't think people believe the hype. That's the thing. I feel like the hype was maybe a little bit too like hyperbolic at certain points. It almost kind of like double back around against them. Richard's Victims, glad to see you. I think we answered the question. Richard's Victims, yeah, Barbie and Oppenheimer, that is the news story of the box office. I honestly feel like Barbie and Oppenheimer, it is counter-programming to a certain extent. And that is what I generally like to see with two movies that are coming out. Like, a big example, Dragon, one of my favorite weekends in, like, recent memory was the weekend where How to Train Your Dragon 2 and 22 Jump Street came out. Both really, really great sequels, in some ways better than the original. Entirely different markets, entirely different, and that's kind of what I think Barbie and Oppenheimer are going to be. What I'm afraid of with Barbie and Oppenheimer is I'm afraid that they're going to kind of cancel each other out, and they're both just going to kind of have like mid-tier openings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because Barbie, I think Barbie's going to be the commercial success there, because everyone's heard of Barbie. Everyone's going to see Barbie. I think Nolan's going to be really upset that really I put my heart and soul on the. I think I'm worried Nolan's going to get real prissy if Oppenheimer doesn't.
I've heard things about Oppenheimer now that people have seen it that make me more excited about it than I have.
I'm sure.
Like, I've heard that it's the closest thing that Nolan has to a horror movie, which gets me really excited.
I mean, look, I have no doubt Oppenheimer's going to amazing. The trailer has me hyped, man. I love that trailer. It's everything I kind of want.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm seeing Barbie first. I'm sorry.
Oh, get it? Really?
Yes.
Okay, well, still. My grandfather.
I am fully in the hype train for Barbie. You know this, Dragon.
Yeah. Anyway, my grandfather, who is a big history buff and everything, he's obsessed with this movie, and I can't get him obsessed about anything these days.
Cool.
I've shown, like, last time I was able to get him to watch a movie was in fact a Christopher Nolan film. So I I was way back for The Dark Knight. So, but still, it's the fact that he is like he never goes to the theaters. He says, I want to go to the theaters to see Oppenheimer. That's that's gonna be big. So I'm sure this movie is gonna be good, but yeah, it's gonna get crushed by Barbie.
Well, we all know that the Haunted Mansion is gonna get crushed, and that's the real shame. I don't know. The Haunted Mansion might be a shit movie. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic about it.
But here's the thing we got to mention too before we move on from the box office. There's like a domino effect. In addition, you have the movies that are warring with each other, and then you have like the domino effect of the one that has like the looming shadow that then knocks out the other two or knocks out the one. So it's like SpiderVerse knocks out Elemental and the Flash.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have so you have Barbie and Barbie fighting with Oppenheimer.
Dragon Transformers literally knocked out SpiderVerse for a week, and then SpiderVerse came back 2 weeks later in the #1 spot.
Well, you know what they say in SpiderVerse about Spider-Man. Spider-Man gets knocked down, but he gets back up. He's Spider-Man. He always gets up.
Code Geese, yeah, I agree. Releasing Spider-Verse and The Flash so close together, that was definitely a mistake. I definitely agree there. I honestly think if they would have switched the release dates of Indy and The Flash, I think both of them potentially could have done better.
I mean, this is going to sound... a part of me thinks... I don't think they're smart enough to really think about this, but let's just say, for argument's sake, they released The Flash in June for the whole 89 factors. Batman, of course, very famously June 1989. Might be coincidental, might just be like the summer release thing. Like ambitiously, a part of me wonders, like, do you think Flash might be bold enough to like? What if we released in February like Deadpool? What if we went in the dead zone?
I mean, honestly, with the Ezra Miller situation, that might not have been the worst idea, just because it's And I'm not gonna lie, the Ezra Miller situation was definitely a part of why I didn't see it in theaters.
Yeah, but again, we'll dovetail. We'll get there.
Yeah, Richard's Victims. Thanks for letting me know that Jared Leto is going to be in fucking Haunted Mansion. And literally, as I'm saying my piece about Ezra Miller, I'm like, God damn it! But it's the Haunted Man. I can't not see the Haunted Mansion. All right. But anyways, okay, so I think that's about it for box office. Let's talk about Pixar imploding, which kind of relates to the box office.
Yeah, this was a rough one for me.
Although I will say that, it's like, say what you will about the Flash bombing and being disappointed by that. I know that Elemental, there's no saving Elemental at this point, but it was still nice to see Elemental come out ahead of the Flash in the second weekend.
Well, that's the thing. I did find it rather nice that Elemental was like, people gave it a second chance, or people gave it a chance that when they overlooked is like,
And I think it's going to do really good on Disney Plus, honestly.
I would like to think so, yeah. So the news of the Pixar layoffs really did crush me. I was like in shock when I heard this, and
I'm terrified for Pete Song, man. I'm not gonna lie. I've been saying that for a minute.
Well, to break it down a little here, one, I can only hope that this was. Having a sense of the man, I can assume safely. I like to think. This is Disney just in their campaign to the scrimp and save money, and this is not Pete Docter making a very harsh call.
Mm-hmm.
You have to imagine Pete Docter. I mean, we have a perception of him, obviously, but still, Pete Docter seems like a very salty-earth nice guy. Like, you imagine he's not going to be like, I'm going to fire everyone from this movie. Like, no. But I don't know. He's either making hard choices, or I think most likely in this case, Disney's forcing him to make the really hard choices, and it's sad.
I mean, just the fact that we literally lost the person who saved Toy Story 2.
Yes, I want to highlight the two.
I mean, you think that would fucking give you job security for life.
So that's the thing. So essentially what happened, for those who may not know, to recap the actual news for a second here. So apparently the Lightyear crew, I don't know if it's almost everyone in the production, but at least 75 people who were on the production of Lightyear were let go. And Angus MacLean, the director of the film, and Galen Sussman, I believe that she produced it, but obviously, most famously, as my associate has laid out, Galen Sussman, the woman that saved Toy Story 2. it is a crime that we've let them go. Galen Sussman especially is given all the good that she's done. She's been there from the beginning, and she literally saved.
No, I mean, yeah. When I hear about stuff like people who have a lot of company loyalty being let go, that's the kind of layoffs that really upset me.
Tiki, there's literally, I mean, you know this because that's how we know the story. There's literally a DVD bonus feature dedicated,
yes,
dedicated to her saving Toy Story 2, which was initially one of the most troubled Pixar productions that then got its bacon saved, and it would have been all flushed down the toilet, almost literally, if not for Galen Sussman. Like having the backups at her house, and what do we do to reward that? We let her go with these layoffs. And I know it's not individuals, like no one's like individually firing them, but it's like the people involved in the production. That's still like blindly letting everyone go just because a movie didn't perform. I will attest mainly post-pandemic, but yes, the industry as a whole is not doing well, but most likely just Disney scrimping and saving because they overshot Disney Plus. That's essentially what all this is in service of.
And they fucked themselves over with Disney Plus too. It's like, because no one was forcing them to make the Pixar movies the de facto, like, we're going to put them on Disney Plus for no extra charge.
Pixar has been very
They did that to themselves. Disney did, not Pixar. Disney.
Yeah, to be fair, like, again, Pixar has been very vocal saying that we don't approve of how Disney's like releasing these things. Okay, we're kind of.
And I really think that screwed them. And honestly, Kogi says Elemental flopped because marketing failed to make the film look unique or exciting. And yeah, I mean, I think the problem is just like people have been conditioned to watch Pixar movies on Disney Plus. And yeah, I mean, Elemental, it's a good movie. It's not a great movie. I definitely think it's flawed. I would give it like a 7 out of 10. But one thing the marketing didn't highlight at all really was the immigrant stuff, which is by far the strongest stuff in the movie, and the stuff in the movie that you could tell Pete Son had kind of like a really personal attachment to.
Yeah. Anyway, also, again, Angus MacLane. I've defended Angus MacLane this in kind of a human way in terms of like, Angus MacLane's done a lot of good work for Pixar in the past. He did Toy Story of Terror, which is an excellent short. It was excellent.
Oh yeah, it is.
Special. And
I would say Toy Story Terror is probably the best Toy Story short.
Yeah, for sure. He's an excellent gag. He's an excellent story man. He's an excellent gag man. He's he's a good animator. So MacLane is wonderful. And again, I will defend him on Lightyear. The first act of Lightyear is wonderful. I love the first act of that movie. So I will defend the first act of that movie to the end of time. But he made a bad story call, and he had a fork in the road. He went down the wrong path. But it was his first time directing a feature. I mean, it'd be ridiculous to say like, we can't have, we can't allot a man like, the mistake. Plus, when especially his hands are tied with the whole, like, we can't address Buzz Lightyear Star Command, despite the fact that you, sir, animated the opening of Buzz Lightyear Star Command. We can't let you use those characters. It's like, I think he made the best of a bad situation in terms of like the story limitations there and that, but then he made a green mistake. That's no reason to fire a man. It's no reason to fire a man. And you're right, it does make me a little concerned for Pete Son if Disney is firing productions based on box office return, which I have to hope with the negative buzz that this choice is getting, that Pete Docter will at least make a plea to Disney, guys. Look at the results that this has gotten us. No one's happy about this. SpiderVerse is going belly up right now. This is not a decision we can't just like fire people willy-nilly because we can't lay people off blindly because the movies aren't performing. Okay,
right.
Look at all the flops Disney's had. Okay, where's the
again, Dragon? I am holding my breath for Pete Son, man. That that guy is a gem of a human being.
Plus, imagine how sad it's going to be. Like, hey, you put your intimate life story
exactly. That's why I'm so nervous for him.
That's the thing.
Okay, let's see. Richard's Victim says all of the big animation studios have been flopping. Yeah, Ruby Gillman, huge flop. Dragon,
okay, to be fair,
we didn't even talk about that.
I think we all saw that one coming, though.
I was like, I don't know. I like the character designs in the trailer, but then the reviews weren't great. I'm still looking forward to watching it just on streaming.
I don't know. Anyway.
Oh wait, I'm dumb. I forgot about Sony Animation. But there is unfortunately things about Sony Animation that are not great. And Dragon, as you know, this one killed me.
Yeah.
Like just literally from a mental health perspective, this story fucking killed me.
Now, to be fair, we don't know every in and out, but you're right. It doesn't sound great. It sounded pretty definitely bad.
Yeah. So apparently, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, specifically Phil Lord, from what I've heard, he's like the main.
Yeah.
The main offender here. I'm not sure how much Miller has gotten involved.
I've only heard Lord's name thrown out there, so the presumption is that it's Phil Lord.
So okay, apparently Phil Lord. Drake, I think you're better versed to talk about like the minutia of animation. So why don't you explain it?
Okay, folks. So essentially, so recently it's come out publicly. The SpiderVerse animators were not happy with how the production went down on Across the SpiderVerse. Now, my assumption going into is that Across Spider-Verse and Beyond Spider-Verse were done, just given how that movie ends, it was done like the production of Back to the Future 2 and 3, which
nope.
They were those movies. Back to the Future was shot 2 and 3 were shot simultaneously because originally it was just going to be a really long version of 2. And it was kind of broken in half, kind of like how Superman 2 went. So this apparently was not the case. I mean, the production was probably slated, but they were probably not like planned out. Like, okay, we're going to have it like in the cans. Apparently, we're far from Beyond the Spider-Verse. Anyway, so just the production of Across the Spider-Verse alone, given the technical boons and leaps and bounds that we've achieved in this movie, it's driven the animators up a wall, but not for the reasons, from the sounds of things, not for the reasons that we usually associate with animation. In terms of like Pixar, for all the technical achievements they do, it takes a lot of very hard work. Simulators, and we're breaking boundaries, and we're doing all sorts of stuff, back-breaking labor. But again, back-breaking labor by people who love their craft, and they're doing it. So from the sounds of things, again, emphasis on the sounds of things, but it's kind of like a word, there's smoke, there's fire sort of thing. So given the fact that we're very likely not going to be able to make the date for Beyond Spider-Verse, it's going to have
I'm honestly surprised they haven't officially delayed it by now.
So basically, it sounds like in animation, like a Pixar movie, occasionally you would have what's called an 11th hour change, in which you might have a sequence that's almost like more like 90 to 95% animated. That'll be like, okay, this is not fitting the story. We got to make a change, and we'll work into the trailer. We'll put it somewhere in there, or we'll refurbish a few things in the scene so we can recycle, use every part of the buffalo, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So occasionally you will have a sequence, usually like one sequence per animated film that will be like an 11th hour thing, and usually with an 11th hour situation it'll be like in the storyboard phase, so you can catch it, so you won't be the thing where you fully animate or almost fully animate it, which would be, oh, we put these poor animators through months and months of hard work for these shots that we're then going to have to cut. So it sounds like we had fully animated sequences that were like at the 11th hour, like, no, we're not going to, Phil Lord come in, just like, nope, guys, we're not going to use a sequence.
Honestly, Dragon, I'm sure the truth, just to put a disclaimer of this, I'm sure the truth is somewhere in the middle. Yeah. I'm sure it's not as cut and dry as Miller just, waiting until all the animation is completely done and then watching and be like, no, hard pass. Yeah. You know what I mean?
What happened is, like, it sounds like he withheld a lot of footage, which means the animators were twiddling their thumbs as he was basically reviewing the footage and giving them the okay for the next sequence. That's essentially what it sounds like happened. So that's what delayed things, and that's what drives the animators crazy. Like, okay, so if they want to review this and see and basically write the story from there during the animation process, which has not happened, because traditionally how it works is like, you write the script, you do the story reel, which essentially is the animatic for the whole movie, which gives you kind of a blueprint of how the animation is going to go. Once you basically okay the script and you get the script, the voice work, and then the script, the storyboards, then the voice work, and then the animation. That's usually how that goes. But it sounds like we might have gone the extra step on that, which could be very, very maddening. And again, it's a question of how much of it is like, is it a PC thing of like, we can't let the animators get pushed anymore to a technical thing where we're going to break boundaries, which yes is going to be hard work. And then it's like, yeah, it was really hard work, and the media will kind of like spin it like, oh, what are we doing? These poor animators, they had to work hard.
Dragon, I think the problem is that this isn't coming from the media. This is coming from the animators themselves.
And
that's what's concerning about it.
And that's where the whole smoke, where the smoke, there's fire. I know that I just now realize that using that analogy is very insensitive at this time, but with our friends from the north. But no, seriously, it's the idea that yeah, you're right. It's coming from the animators themselves, so it's sounding like it's bad.
I mean, I would even wager to say the media, just in general, probably not happy that this news is breaking because obviously Spider-Verse is like the one big success of the month.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, the thing that makes me think that makes me believe that yeah, there's probably some truth to this is the fact that the first wind I got of any of this is like, hey, we're going to an animator saying, I wouldn't bet on this movie making that 2024 release date.
I think that comment happened like a couple days before like the watershed of people coming out about it happened.
So based on that, it sounds like okay, there's something's amiss here. If this guy's saying, "Oh, forget what they're advertising," literally at the end of that movie, like they didn't say 2024 at the end of the movie. They said the next day they announced the title at the end of that movie. So
yeah, which was smart. I will give them that. That was smart.
Yeah. So still, it's just the fact that you have something that was so good and so like kind of rallying the animation industry as a whole and everything, and then you
so that's exactly why this news in particular just Dragon for a couple days there my mental health was honestly pretty crushed just because like Spider-Verse was a triumph artistically. Like I honestly don't think it's a perfect movie. Like we'll talk about it. Like I didn't really get to say my piece on it because I wasn't on the spoiler cast. Like I do have a couple nitpicks with it, but I have obviously no nitpicks with it from an artistic point of view. I mean, goddamn, from an artistic point of view, it might be the most incredible looking and animated movie ever. So,
yeah. So it's if it's as true as it's been reported, it is very sad for sure that we're gonna like kick around the animators like that if they delivered miracles to us. But yeah, I mean they're speaking out though, so it's unclear how it's gonna pan out.
It's just it's just very troubling because of the whole notion of like, fuck, it's obviously such a great looking film, but at what cost,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I've heard horror stories. Tiki and I will watch a whole documentary about the horror stories of like a perfectionist in the animation field, and yeah, it can kill morale very very easily, and you don't want that to happen. So it's tricky business.
All right. Well, you know what else is tricky business these days is conventions. Honestly, just because like the pandemics, I feel like the pandemic, like I don't know, like it's kind of like I think this mentality's kind of gone away a little bit, but like I feel like some people are still afraid of the crowds. But I will say the big thing that I think is affecting cons.
Well, we got to see the news first.
Though. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm bad at that. Go ahead.
Yes. So Comic-Con, there have been a whole almost all the media outlets have canceled for Comic-Con, as in like like HBO, Sony, Universal, Disney, Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, Netflix. None of them are showing up. They announced like, "Hey guys, we're not going to be there this year."
So I really think that Comic-Con is basically going the way of E3. I'm not sure how familiar you are with E3, Dragon, but basically it was like the video game equivalent to Comic-Con. And it's dead. Like, it is just completely dead in the water. It is no longer around. And I don't think that's going to be because Comic-Con San Diego is obviously like a huge institution, but I don't know, Dragon. I think we're definitely going to get to a point, if we're not at that point already, where Comic-Con San Diego is still a thing that happened, but it just is not really notable for like the place to make major announcements.
Yeah, I mean, look, when they did the DC Fandom, when they started that during the pandemic, that was always like a little bit of a threat to Comic Con. But at the end of the day, DC Fandom was like really just like, well, it's barely anything. Basically, it was kind of like a revelation. Like we turned let me give you this analogy. It was if we turned the lights on during Hall H. It was like, this is what we're doing. This is pretty much it. We're just all gathering in a big old space so we can be next to the famous people as we watch trailers.
Dragon, pretty much, exactly. You nailed it on the head. Exactly. Yeah.
So that's essentially what Hall H is. It's essentially what the big appeal of like going all the way to Comic-Con is. I mean that, and I guess I imagine you can pay an arm and a leg soon to sort of stay around. But usually there's there for the announcements. Usually that's what happens. Back in like 2011. Some of them would stick around. Like some of them would actually during for example, Chris Evans and Ryan Reynolds are signing autographs for Green Lantern and Captain America. So I don't know if that's changed. I think it's just changed completely over the years. But I've never put boots on the ground in San Diego, so I can't tell you firsthand how that works. But regardless, the writer's strike, I suspect, is the main thing. If I take it, this might be an update, but I don't know the full story here. I heard because of the production of Captain America: Brave New World, it sounds like the actor thing actually has happened. Have the actors officially gone on strike? Do you know?
I don't know. I haven't heard officially, but I did hear that if they didn't reach a negotiation by the end of the month, that they would. So.
All I heard was this. Here's what I heard. I heard that while they wrapped production on Captain America: Brave New World in a rush because they were going to strike, because the actors were going to strike and they needed to wrap it up fast. And that's, I believe, what's coming from Anthony Mackie. I think that's what was said there. Like Anthony Mackie's kind of responding to the whole thing, like, are the actors striking? Are you going to strike with them? So that whole thing. So that suggests to me that it's Anthony Mackie's pretty confident. Like, when the actors go on strike, it's going to be a crap show, and they're going to have to make a deal.
No, I mean, honestly, yeah, that's kind of why I'm hoping that the actors go on strike, because I think it's going to accelerate things.
So it sounds like it might have happened, just given the fact they wrapped production. I don't know if it's purely out of fear or they wrapped production and just narrowly beat the actors strike. I don't know. So based on that, it seems like this was still this was announced like earlier in the month before this whole this immediate kind of wrap up of June to going into July with the whole actors strike went. But it sounds like the studios. They're not showing up because they have nothing they can confirm as long as the strike's going on. It's kind of mostly the sound of things here.
Sure. I mean, 2024 is going to be a weird. I have a feeling that 2024 is going to be another 2021 in regards to it's just going to be a weird slate of movies, I think.
Now, I'm unsure about this, because given the animation is like the exception, I mean, now the actor strike is going to compromise that, but from what they were able to do before that strike, the animated stuff, like the DC direct-to-video animated films, I mean, they might be unaffected. They might be. I heard some minimal stuff might be able to present, so they might be able to do their announcements, which I'm hoping for. Because just in general, because I'm eager, I wonder what the next slate of DC animated films is going to be. Because they actually know what they're doing now.
Right.
Yeah. So, plus, honestly, the big question with the DC animation, the animated film announcement is are we going to break out the James Gunn thing yet? Because we're going to start with that, with the Creature Commandos thing, and there's the big question of are we, is that going to correlate with the existing DC animated films or not, or is it purely going to be the beginning of something new? So that's a big question. Anyway, it's funny. I'll mention this. They're going to be really they're not going to be in hot water at all. But it's going to be a really blazing thing. When they've been releasing these, they call it the Tomorrowverse. These in continuity DC anime films have been releasing lately that have been good. On the sides of the DVD Blu-ray boxes, they have like an icon that spells out the DC logo. So it's like DC Comics. So the idea, if you got the full set, it would spell out DC Comics in full, little characters and the letters. So the implication is they're only at a certain point in that. We haven't finished the word yet on comics. So they have to presume there is at least that many animated films left, to fill out the rest of that word. So we got a fair number of them possibly. If they finish it prematurely, it's gonna be, that was a missed opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, that was some false advertising. It's like the old manga thing, where manga you get the Dragon Ball volumes. It's on the side it's gonna spell out the full word, little artwork on the side, Anyway.
I remember when they did that for the Dragon Ball VHSs too.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool. Anyways.
It was good times.
The only one I could ever afford was the fucking Garlic Jr. saga because it was only 3 tapes.
I remember.
Shortest. The Frieza one was 12 tapes or
literally,
something.
the Garlic Jr. saga is the shortest, most forgettable saga.
It is. All right, let's get off track. We could do a whole podcast on the Garlic Jr. saga, I am sure. Anyways. Okay, so Superman Legacy has some casting. I'm sorry. Before we get to that, I want to address some comments here. Richard's Victims says, he asks, do you think Disney will get lucky with Wish?
Not in the slightest.
No.
There's that movie doesn't have a prayer, man. Like
I honestly think Wish looks pretty terrible. I really do. I mean,
Tiki, I mean, I feel slightly vindicated. I mean, we'll see when it comes out, but I keep saying like they're in this assembly line mode right now with the Disney films right now, and they're kind of like passable or okay. There's like
the one thing about Wish that I'm slightly optimistic about is the fact that it does look like we have a proper Disney villain again. That's like the one element of it that I will give credit for. Like, okay, that's like a little bit of like, ooh, all right.
Yeah, but like there's like a barely a tease. Like, yeah, he's a full-on Disney villain. Like, give me your wish, and that's all we see of him.
I will say I hate the look of the animation style. It is very like blatantly obvious that Disney is like trying to copy the SpiderVerse style, but doesn't know what they're doing. Like it might look better in the final film. I hope it does. And also, just really is the joke that we're going to sell the whole damn movie on British goat?
Well, it's not just British, it's Alan Tudyk.
Okay, but like it's like distinguished, like that. You're right, it's not British, but like, you know, like the whole joke of like it's a cute little animal and a distinguished voice. Like, well, you know, like we haven't seen that a million times.
That was really funny. That voice that Alan Tudyk's using for the goat.
Yeah,
it's essentially Clayface from Harley Quinn. it's slightly deeper. It's slightly deeper, but that's exactly how Clayface sounds in Harley Quinn.
Code Geass, I think Blue Beetle is pretty screwed, honestly. I really do.
You know what, though? I mean, that kid, that he is clinging to hope, and no one's like full. I mean, James Gunn's he's essentially suggested that, yeah, Blue Beetle essentially it carries over into his stuff. I think they're playing a wait and see attitude for it, though. So, I mean, I'm hoping it does well and they keep that kid.
I'm going to be honest with you, Dragon. I'm not planning on seeing it in theaters.
But it's Miguel.
I know. It just doesn't.
It's Blue Beetle.
I'm very much in superhero fatigue mode right now. I'm sorry.
This might be a fresh one. Blue Beetle's cool.
Well, if it gets good reviews, I'll see. Anyways. All right. Also, just to address Code Geass, he says Sony does delay their Spider-Man related films often, like Morbius, Kraven, El Muerto. SpiderVerse 2 ends on a cliffhanger, so it's harder to delay. Yeah. Sorry.
Every time I hear that El Muerto movie like being announced, like, that's the dumbest. What on earth were they thinking? Yes, the actor's kind of cool, but like, I mean, don't give him a movie based on that.
So just to address that comment, though, I mean, I agree with you that it puts them in a tricky situation, but I think just for the sake of publicity and especially the sake of the artists themselves, I honestly think the only move to do right now is to delay it. I think that's their only play.
Well, I mean, it's not even just by like an upstanding sort of thing, like a publicity thing. It's like literally like they cannot release this movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. It's like especially
the animators are called.
I mean, could you imagine if the animation quality was like way downgraded because they rushed it?
I mean, one of two things is going to happen. Okay, I think just the fact that the animators are speaking out in the first place is them saying, "Okay, guys, we have to speak out on this because we can't humanly deliver on this. We gotta like call it out that guys, there's no way a movie of this caliber can be released in a year, especially even assumedly. I think if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say they've gotten the story reels down for this movie, but they're in the midst of the animation, which is probably going to take them 2 years minimum.
They probably want to fucking push it more than they pushed across the Spider-Verse.
I'm saying at a minimum, if they're just starting the animation, then you're still probably at a minimum 2 years away. Which is
I've been hearing 2026.
I'm saying at a minimum.
It's like that's painful from a point of view of we have to wait that long for a cliffhanger. But then again, it's like, I don't know. Now we're going to know what the people who waited that long for the resolution to the Empire Strikes Back cliffhanger had to go through. You know,
there is another thing.
Probably going to be like our experience.
There is one other thing to consider, though, with Beyond the Spider-Verse is that how much can we actually push it? I mean, the movie's called Beyond, so you have to presume, like, with a title like Beyond, okay, we gotta push it.
Well, I mean, there's ways they can push it, right? It's all about just kind of like the blending of the different animation styles at this point, and there's a bunch of styles that they could theoretically push.
I just have to. I mean, the real question, I guess, behind the scenes is like, okay, have they conceptualized what they want to do, but they haven't found out like how to do it, or is it are they at a point where it's like, okay, guys, we finished the movie, we're at the animation stage, how do we up it?
Right.
So I mean, but yeah, it's gonna be this is gonna sound really morbid, but it's like this Spider-Verse movie, if they have to deliver by 2024, and Sony's going to be the greed machine that it is, like the full-on Tony G, we've got to have money. If they go full on that, you're going to have a report in the news about animator is keeled over at the desk.
Right? I mean, yeah, I don't want to joke about that, but yeah.
I mean, it'll be like the first time. Dear God, like that's going to be dying in the saddle to make a deadline. That's what it's going to take, and that's going to be the sobering thing of like, oh God, animators have to die to make this movie. It's amazing, but still, dear God.
All right, let's move on to the next subject. So Superman Legacy, we have our Lois and our Clark Kent /
Finally, good news.
Yeah, I know, right? There wasn't much of it this year, this month, not even in the trailer department, honestly. But okay, so Dragon, I'll take David Corenswet because Corenswet. Is that how you say it? Corenswet?
Honestly, I didn't look into how to pronounce the name, so
I'm just gonna take it. So, Dragon, as you know, my number one movie of 2022, a kind of an unconventional pick, but I'm proud of the pick, is Pearl. And Dragon, this man plays a sleazy porn theater movie projectionist in Pearl.
So let's get that guy to play Superman.
I know, right? It's like that is like the farthest thing I had from my Superman casting bingo card. But you know what? I love it. I love how unconventional it is because that's exactly the kind of dude we need for Superman, is someone who is totally unrecognizable, you know?
So apparently he did a show on Netflix that I don't know how good it was, but it had kind of. Did you ever watch that Hollywood show on Netflix?
No, I was meaning to look into it. It got kind of a mixed reception.
I don't know how major a character he is in that, but I hear he's in it for like 7 episodes. I think it's like a 7-episode series. The assumption is he might have a substantial role.
I'm pretty sure he's the main character.
I forget. I thought. Okay, so I guess Jim Parsons wasn't the main character in that then. So I guess it was him.
Or it's an ensemble. I think it's probably an ensemble and he's in the main cast. I'm guessing that's probably it.
But yeah, so I never watched that show, but it's just here's the thing. I know he had a bit part in House of Cards. So oddly enough, we have two House of Cards actors cast as Superman and Lois. But again, more like bit parts. I mean, Rachel Brosnahan has more substantial role in House of Cards. But regardless. So I'm jazzed out of my mind for Rachel Brosnahan. I heard she was in the casting pool. I was really rooting for her, especially since Marvelous Mrs. Maisel ended.
I need to catch up on Mrs. Maisel, but the little I did see of it, I mean, she's perfect.
Yes,
Lois, she's perfect. Exactly. Absolutely perfect.
If Lois Lane were Jewish, I mean, she'd be like 1,000% on the money, but still, regardless, she has the range, she's got the talent, she can.
There's nothing that says Lois Lane can't be Jewish.
No, you're right. I'm just saying it's like that. It's like that weird thing where technically, depending on like what strings you pull, it's like, well, technically, Batman could be Jewish, but no one ever brings that up.
Right.
You know, there's nothing saying he can't be. Anyway, so and obviously,
honestly, in my headcanon, I honestly would not mind Lois Lane being Jewish. I honestly think that makes sense.
I think Harley Quinn's Jewish, but no one
talks
about that too. That's what I'm saying. There's technically a lot of secret in the DC comics, but regardless. Point being, I'm saying I imagine they're not going to make her Jewish just for the whole comparisons to Marvel's Mrs. Maisel, but anyway, they do it though. She's amazing. She has the spunk for it. She's got again, she talks mile a minute. She's got confidence. She looks the part. It's like she's absolutely perfect.
It's perfect. It fits like a glove. Absolutely.
Now the criticism people have pointed out that I think is a valid criticism, but I mean I feel their pain is the fact that a lot of people when they released the screenshot of these two like side by side, the first thing everyone brought up was like, well, it looks like young Cavill. What's the point? We just got young Cavill.
Yeah, I feel that too.
But again, that's kind of like
you know what? I do think that we just need to wash our hands of the Snyderverse, though. I mean, the box office for the Flash kind of proves that, right?
I know it's the sad thing that we can't just accept guys. Okay, we like this actor, we can just bring him in and just have it be like, let the boy play Superman. You know,
Bruce Wayne should be an edgy atheist.
And anyway. But yeah, it's just the fact that he unfortunately the bed's been made for the state of things. The fact that we need a young, apparently according to James Gunn, he's got a plan. We need a young Superman for that plan. So I guess we can't have a seasoned Henry Cavill, which it's a shame. Well, we would love to see Cavill play Superman like the way he wanted to play him. Yeah, it's not in the cards, sadly. But it's honestly, you know what it is, though? When everyone brings that up, you have to point out, though, it's like, well, let's show you how good Superman Cavill was. He just looked like Superman. This is what Superman looks like. He looks like Cavill. He looks like this guy. That's what Superman looks like.
Exactly.
I don't know what to tell you. It's what he looks like.
All right, let's see. Just going into some comments here. Kill Geese just saying Illuminations has the highest, not only the highest grossing animated film, but the highest grossing film of the year. And honestly, I don't see anything like beating Mario this year. I really don't. Out of everything that's coming out this year, I really don't see anything topping it.
Kevin Smith has brought up with the whole like the kids movies like Balaam had it like that in this movie theater. Mario is like the big savior for him.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Claymation and Beyond the Spider-Verse. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking when it comes to like when you ask the question, what more can we do? That is one of the things. Like stop motion is one of the things that came to mind.
I mean, the big thing, I mean, on the top of my head is like, again, we got to do Spider-Man the Animated. That's the big trump card they've been saving. We have to do 90 Spider-Man.
Okay, Kogi says, I think Beyond the Spider-Verse could make $1 billion if they put the 3 live-action Spider-Man in it. Kogi, I honestly think I would rather not have those Spider-Men in it, or I just think it's such a personal story at this point where Across the Spider-Verse ends. I don't know. I just don't really know what Toby and Andrew and Tom could add at this point.
Well, do you think they could be a post-credit gag at the very end?
Possibly, yeah.
Like they were late to the party.
For a gag. I just don't think you can use those 3 and have it be as satisfying as it was in No Way Home.
Do you think they go as far, real quick? Do you think they go as far as to have like a brief gag, like during like a montage where Miles accidentally jumps into like the MCU during No Way Home, and he sees all 3 of them? We have a live action Miles, and he goes back like, who was that?
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay.
All right. Richard Victims. When I think of Superman, oh yeah, I think sleazy porn movie projectionist.
It does remind me of that one obscure Superman comic where Superman was kind of blackmailed and doing something with Big Bart. It was not.
Oh no!
Yeah, wasn't great.
Kogi says, I think Henry Cavill could have gone down in history as a fan favorite Superman had he been allowed to play the classic Boy Scout Superman. I agree, and I think he's already kind of like a fan favorite Superman just based on like the little screen time that we did get of him in that.
It's the saddest thing in the Justice League, if you will. What we get in the third act with that Superman when he comes back in the classic suit, you know what? That's the Superman Cavill always wanted to play.
Yeah,
good job playing him. You know.
I want Beyond the Spider-Verse to have a Morbius cameo. Oh my god. All right, fine. I'll do the callback. Richard says Superman, along with Doolittle and The Color Purple, is up there as my favorite sex comedy. At this point, I feel bad about the Color Purple sex comedy thing because Dragon, obviously, you didn't like. That was just like a moment that I jumped on, and I don't want to like run that into the ground. So, anyways, all right. Okay, let's move on. Trailers. Oh dear God. Dragon, Kraven the Hunter, legitimately one of the worst trailers I've ever seen in my life.
I agree 1,000%.
I do not know. I mean, I never had any faith in this movie. I think that Aaron Taylor Johnson was a terrible casting choice. But man, I mean, my God, talk about a trailer just not doing anything to actually sell me on it.
You know what adds insult to injury?
What?
Is the fact that, hey, we're going to make the Kraven the Hunter movie R-rated, but not the Venom movie.
Oh, God. Oh, you're right.
Or the Carnage, or the sequel, which has Carnage, which is the very least.
Very much should have been R-rated. Oh, God.
At the very least, a progression of like PG-13 Venom, and then, the Let There Be Carnage movie, R-rated. Nope.
Yeah, we don't need to linger on this. This movie's going to be dog shit. Dragon, I think it's fair to say at this point, we're not going to cover it on the podcast.
You know how rarely it is that I don't see a Marvel movie.
Yes, I do.
I am not seeing this. I ain't.
All right, I'm proud of you.
I'm not seeing Kraven the same way I didn't see New Mutants. No, I'm not doing it. I was tricked into Morbius. Morbius was my sobering moment where I sat that whole movie just so I can get that Keaton scene.
Right. Yeah.
Literally at the very end of the post-credit scene. That's literally what it was.
Oh man.
And it was. I think it was just the post-credit scene too. I don't even think it was the end of the movie. I can't remember. Anyway, it was. Yeah.
It's Richard's Victim says it's funny that Venom is the best franchise. It's the weird Sony Spider-Man universe. You're not wrong. Honestly,
it's a thing. But yes, the Craven Hunter movie again. If you want to shift perspectives and have Craven hunting Spider-Man, that's your movie. I don't understand why Sony can't afford Spider-Man, despite the fact they paid through the nose to get him.
I mean, honestly, at this point, even if they can't get Tom Holland, get somebody and just fucking call it a multiverse.
Exactly. I don't get it. Put a guy in a costume. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Just. We get Logan Lerman to do it, but then again, I want Logan.
Oh, that would be perfect.
I would want him in a good Spider-Man movie, though, not necessarily. But again, that'd be the only way to save this Craven movie. 2 ways: get Spider-Man in there, and ideally not Aaron Taylor Johnson. I mean, here's the thing: even if here's the baffling thing: we're gonna get Aaron Taylor Johnson. You would imagine because of the ordinarily good actor, but primarily, I'd say that he's had good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the point being...
Maybe I'm just still bitter about Godzilla.
I think you are still bitter about Godzilla. My point is...
Craven is going to crash and burn. There's no way it's making money. There's just no way.
I just want a moment of pride. I just want a moment of pride where like the world stands up and just like Craven makes like the price of like maybe 1 week's worth of tickets. That's just like across the board. It's like only like a week's only like one, like not even like a full week. Just like everyone's like saw him day 1, and no one else saw it again. No rewatches, no like we hear all the buzz, all the advertising, all the go down the. I just want 1 ticket sold, frankly, for it. That's all I want. Earthly person. I don't want this movie to be successful. Sony's never going to
want to get it from Aaron Taylor Johnson's mom.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that gag from the opening of The Great Muppet Caper. It's like, who even sees these credits, Kermit? It's like, well, they have families. but anyway, so it's just the fact that it's like, hey, Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's at least we've seen him do a faux Russian accent. So we get him to do the faux Russian accent for this character.
Yeah, that's what I really don't understand.
That is the most baffling choice. I feel so bad. I mean, he kind of dodged the bullet ultimately, but still, I feel bad for like if this movie had any person like Stefan Kapsic's off to the side, like, I couldn't have played that part.
I mean, Code Geass, the Venom films were hits, but like the Venom films had Venom in it. Like that was a huge selling point, and the Venom trailers actually looked really good.
I just desperately want Kraven the Hunter to be played by Stefan Kapsic in the MCU. I don't think it's that hard a concept. Okay, he's a cool guy. He's down for anything. He's a charming man. We could get him to play the role.
Yeah, Stefan Kapsic would be great. Oscar Isaacs, Richard's Victims point out, they want the star power.
He's already busy with so many other roles.
No, you're right.
Yeah, they'd be good for it, but we can't put him in everything.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about our last trailer.
Something good.
My Adventures with Superman. I mean, it's only a minute long. I don't really. Let me ask you this, Dragon. Is it from the same animation studio as Invincible?
I meant to look into that. It looks similar to, but I don't.
It does look similar, yeah.
I don't think it's the same studio. I think the animation style looks a little different from, but I have to look into it to know.
It looks a little bit more Japanese, honestly.
That's the thing. Everyone's pointing at the anime.
Yeah.
That makes me think it's not Invincible, but
which honestly, like, that's kind of what makes me excited about this. Is that this, based on the trailer, it pretty much looks like a ground up reinterpretation of Superman just as an anime.
I know that I think is a really good idea. Plus, I like the revamp on Lois's design and everything. It looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
And it's going to be it's Adult Swim too. which gives me some confidence because Adult Swim has been kind of hitting bangers recently when it comes to their original stuff.
This is a bad comparison, but best case, we could have like a Cowboy Bebop Superman of sorts, you know?
I could see that, yeah. So yeah, I'll definitely check it out. It's going to be on Max anyways, and honestly, Dragon, I haven't used my Max account for much, so it's good that I'll have something.
Yeah, let me ask you something. This has occurred to me now. You loved Clone High, didn't you? The original.
Dragon, I'm afraid to watch the reboot. I have not heard good things.
I've only heard one thing about it. I heard they axed Gandhi, but aside from that, it's I don't know.
I've just heard that the actual like humor and pacing has been way watered down, and the animation's not nearly as fluid. Honestly, Dragon, it's to the point where I'm hesitant to watch it just because I don't want. Yes, I do love the original Clone High, and I don't want my love of it to be tainted.
You want to hear the good news, though?
Sure.
You can rewatch the first season on Max as well.
Yeah, I know.
Just letting you know.
For a long time, the first season was just up on YouTube.
Yeah, no.
All right. So let's finally, after an hour and 5 minutes, let's move into.
Well, someone wanted to talk box office.
I know. Let's move into June 2023. I'm a regular Dan Merle, aren't I?
All right.
Okay, so Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Right? Let me say my piece about this.
Yeah.
All the animation is just fucking incredible. I mean, especially like I would wager to say that first 20 minutes with Gwen and just how everything, like the watercolors, the way that they do the Vulture, everything about that first 20 minutes is just impeccable. It's genuinely like some of the most thrilling animation I have ever seen in a movie theater. And the rest of the movie is great too. The rest of the movie has really wonderful pacing, a great balance of like really, really solid character development mixed with the Easter eggs and the fan service and everything. One character that I actually think that the Indian Spider-Man, I really love what they did with him, and I feel like Spider-Punk, for good reason, Spider-Punk kind of overshadows him, but I really, really love what they did with Indian Spider-Man. First of all, the line, being Spider-Man is so easy. I don't know. It's so fucking funny. I love that line.
Yeah.
And just like, I love the idea of, like, just the way, like with the plot, I think this is probably like my single favorite element of the way that the story's written is, subverting like Miles saving him and his Uncle Ben figure of sorts and his girlfriend into, oh shit, no, that was like, because Dragon, there was something that seemed a little off about like the fact that his story in that universe ended so happy. Like it was a little uncanny, and then it's like, no, the rug was pulled out. Okay, shit. I will though, my big hesitation with this movie, and this is why I struggle to say that this is the best comic movie of the year, because I feel like it's kind of funny, right? Because I feel like Guardians 3, I definitely don't think the actual structure of Guardians 3 is as strong as Across the Spider-Verse, and certainly Across the Spider-Verse has some higher highs. But Guardians 3 is just such a fucking great, like, send-off, and there's such finality to it. And obviously, this is very unfinal. And I'm not going to lie, Dragon, I have a hard time kind of wrapping my head around just how much of a cliffhanger this is. And yes, I know it's obviously a part one. I knew that it was going to be a part one going into it. I knew that there would be a cliffhanger going into it. I think my problem is that this movie really does just feel like two acts. It's like it's the character development stuff with Miles and Gwen, and then it's going across the Spider-Verse and the chase. And so, like, I am torn on like the actual structure of this movie. Just the way it ends to me is just a little bit off. And obviously, we'll have to see how the third film kind of wraps up everything. And to me, it's like I feel like a good comparison point is I feel like Infinity War, in spite of having, again, like obviously a monumental, like status quo shifting cliffhanger, feels like a more complete movie than this does. At least as far as like, in spite of that cliffhanger, Infinity War does weirdly feel like a pretty standalone story in its own right. Like, it's way up there as one of my favorite MCU movies. It's by far my favorite movie. But yeah, I know it's a weird thing where Guardians just has all the solid finality to it and just the satisfying wrap-up quality and the emotional catharsis. Not to say that this isn't emotional. I mean, certainly it's very emotional in some spots. Like, all the beats with Gwen and her father, just, like, absolutely some of the most powerful stuff on screen this year.
Do you know who plays her father?
Yeah, remind me.
Shea Wiggum. You remember who Shea Wiggum is, don't you?
No.
Dooley from Agent Carter.
What? Jesus Christ.
Dooley's girl.
Oh, gosh. That's so random.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't think this is going to be my... Well, I already know it's not going to be my number one of the year because another movie this month has already surpassed it, but it's up there for sure. I mean, like I said, just from a presentation point of view, it's just absolutely gobsmacking.
Yeah, I think with the rest of us, I'm head over heels for Across the Spider-Verse. I think it's an excellent continuation to Into the Spider-Verse. I don't think it. I mean, for obvious reasons, given the fact it's a little unfinished by the end because of how it has to be with the whole they're going for again looking at this movie as like a Back to the Future 2, I do appreciate the ending, and I do like in the sense of like the excitement. I do like the audience experience I had. I knew it was going to end somewhat like this. I knew it was going to be like, a lot of people. They dropped the part 1 from the advertising completely in the title. Like when it was announced way back, they had part 1, but in all the advertising in the market, there was no part 1. So everyone in my theater was pretty much gobsmacked by the whole part 1. What? Essentially like that's it. That's the ending. So I mean, because of that, I kind of relish the whole Back to the Future 2 thing. Kind of gives me a retroactive thing. Oh man, what would it have been like to be there during Back to the Future 2? So it's kind of the closest I'm ever going to get to that again. So on that level, I really like it. But yeah, I mean, look, when I hold it shoulder to shoulder with the first movie, I mean, aside from the fact we get a complete arc on Miles and everything in the first movie, here, I mean, I have like my pet peeves. Like we don't match things up like exactly like with the way Spider-Verse because they had no idea they were going to do a sequel. It's like the whole thing of like, it just seems like, Gwen just somehow found a way to pop by, but now we have like the whole, like the lead up to, okay, she shows up and Miles is like actually kind of having a low moment right now versus just kind of chilling. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. But yeah, I like that. My favorite aspect of this movie is like the meta addressment of like famously Miles Morales' critics. The whole
yeah, absolutely, which is something that was very intentional.
But yeah, I love how he found a way of kind of like working the end of the movie, and we have like this really interesting take on 2099, who I think the more I go back to the movie, the more I'm captivated by him. So Oscar Isaacs, he's really good as 2099. The fact that I love the parallels between Miguel O'Hara and Miles Morales because they're both Spider-Man, but neither of them are Peter Parker. And they both have similarity in terms of they went against their their main universe. They crossed the Spider-Verse essentially for their thing. Well, essentially, they broke the rules essentially with the whole canon events of it all, and disastrously for 2099. He's trying to correct that with Miles. So I do wonder how the diehard 2099 fans feel about that because he is definitely the antagonist, not a villain, but an antagonist in this movie, and it's almost a Chuck versus Jimmy McGill thing in terms of like 2099 is not wrong in this movie per se about what he's saying. But it is the question, and there is the leap, and there's the ethical conundrum of like, would all the Spider-Man in the universe side with him on this matter? On what happens in that movie? Would they side with him in terms of like, letting someone die for the greater good?
Well, I mean, I think that's why Hobie's such a standout character, that he very much sides with Miles.
So, and again, that's the thing. I like that there's like a discussion with it. It's a movie I'm eager to rewatch based on that. And I'm already like the stuff I'm thinking about with it is just I think it's really, again, it's nice to noodle on with the whole ethical conundrum there with Spider-Man. I love the idea. There's a lot of really good stuff. The animation is sublime. The Spot in particular, the fact that we take the Spot and we represent him really perfectly in terms of him being a gag villain, but then we make him a legitimate threat as a huge plot point of the movie. Where he's threatening to do something very terrible. That's going to be the big crux of what this Beyond the Spider-Verse movie is, and he's like the innocuous little. It's like Spider-Man.
I also love that the fucking Venom cameo.
Yeah.
Like, very much easily could have been distracting, but the way that it's played so straight it's perfect. It's perfectly timed.
Yeah. So we have like this.
Thor
takes the gum. Anyway, yeah, and of course the origin for the Spot is as flawless. What gave us the Spot in the first place. One very small event, thanks to Miles. So it's kind of like we're representing Spider-Man really well in like the best examples of Spider-Man, like Spectacular Spider-Man. He made fun of Electro, and that's why it turned Electro into a villain. So we did kind of that with the Spot here, and then we kind of we seemingly were making a really good meal out of the interpersonal stuff with Miles, like settling into like the sacrifice of the personal life of being Spider-Man and all that sort of stuff. So I think we played everything really, really perfectly. It's just, a few little quibbles here, and then the fact that we don't necessarily have the resolution to everything. It's that, but we also have like this insanely awesome Spider-Man chase, so there's a lot going for it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Up next, we have Elemental. Dragon, you and I have talked quite a bit about this movie. It's fair to say we like it. Parts of it we really like the parents. Everything about the parents we really like.
Ryan Del Carmen, so great. It's really fitting here is the fact that Pete Sohn is kind of a scratch guy himself, and the fact that he was like the temporary voice for Emil, and they cast him as Emil. And the fact that Ryan Del Carmen, he's probably like a scratch voice on Bernie, but they love him so much they made him like a very key character in this film.
So honestly, the more I think about this movie, the more I think that the stuff about like the second generation immigrant and Ember's, like her position that she's put in where it's like she has to take over the shop or else her dad is literally going to work himself to death. Mm-hmm. That's a super compelling setup.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the more I think about this movie, I don't really think the romance works all that well for me personally. I don't know. I just don't think the chemistry is all that great between the two of them. I think a big part of it is just the fact that, like, eventually I grew to like Wade, but it took a long time to get there.
I think
Wade comes out very, very, very strong out of the gate.
Yeah, I think the meet cute is probably flawed. I need to rewatch the movie to make a full assessment on if the relationship really works as well as I think ultimately it does. But you're right, the beginning is very bumpy and it's kind of a clunky meet cute. That said, though, again, the Pixar, they did yet again what they do so often, where they're going to hit me in the feels, like in the solar plexus of what's going on in my soul at times there. So I've been in this fire girl's shoes, man. Mm-hmm. And I like the So I didn't think it kind of.
I honestly think the depiction of her working customer service and the panic attack so fucking relatable. Honestly, this is going to be a hot take, unintended. But I honestly think the panic attack in this movie is an even more relatable and realistic panic attack than the one in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. I said it. I went there. Maybe it's just because like it's specifically like a retail triggered panic attack, but
even that, I don't know. It's kind of two different things, though. T. That's the thing. That one's kind of like overwhelmed by some very relatable versus this kind
whereas Puss in Boots was very much an existential.
Yeah, exactly. They're both great, but they're two very different things.
Well, I guess because I go through more of the anxiety panic attacks than I go through the existential ones, I guess I can just relate to the elemental one more.
Right. Regardless, the thing I love Bernie. I think the animation impresses as it tends to do with Pixar. But this movie, again, very, very mismarketed. It should not have been marketed as a rom-com. Should have been the immigrant story, but we didn't.
I also kind of wish that the city itself. I think there's some problematic elements, not problematic from like a cultural point of view, but just from a story point of view. I don't really love the world building in this movie.
I like the world building, but I feel it was mismarketed as like it's going to be all world building. We're not really. It's more character.
Right. And I feel like because it was marketed as it's going to be all world building, I feel like I'm nitpicking the details more than I probably should be.
Yeah, it's more coexistence than it is like the world itself. It's like less,
But you know what this movie did have, Dragon?
What did it have, Tiki?
It had Claude!
You Claude!
Motherfucking Claude! Isn't Claude just the best, Dragon?
Okay, so long story short, we overmarketed a very forgettable character in Claude.
Dragon, have you seen the video where Disney like they released a video where it's like the theater's reaction to finally seeing Claude? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen this.
Oh God. Okay, Dragon, I'm sorry. I have to play it. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm not gonna like show the keep talking, Dragon. I'm gonna pull it up.
Anyway, so
it's gonna be worth it. Trust me. The
payoff
is gonna be huge, Morty.
Okay, as I said, despite people being really lukewarm to the reception of this movie because of the mismarketing, the whole of people not remember, a film like this in any stretch is going to be a hard sell, but particularly like selling a rom-com to kids is going to be a hard sell. They were lucky Wall-E went off because Wall-E was a cute little robot. That was their backup plan. It's space, cute little robot, and it has a romance in there, so it had like a lot of cushions for that one. But
sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, it's the fact that we're giving this a shot that people are now seeing. It's like actually this really moving, like intimate story that's kind of has relatable elements to it. And it's like it's an immigrant thing. It's like a thing you can probably kind of should educate kids a little bit. Like that's that's what it's all about. So I'm so delighted that people are giving another shot, and that Pete Sohn's like personal story is getting the love that it deserves, and hopefully we'll continue to get that love.
All right, Dragon, this is an actual ad that was put out by Pixar. And again, the caption is the theater when Claude finally shows up in Elemental, Claude in all caps.
Yeah.
For the wedding. Hey. Yo. Anyway, June Bloom is coming, and you just got to be my date. Cause check it out, I'm all grown up, and I smell good.
Let me ask you something.
That's the most ridiculous shit.
Do you think it's a Pixar?
No, there's no way that's real. There's no fucking
no. I know it's not real. What I'm getting at is do you think it's like intentionally manufactured? Is it Pixar poking fun at itself with Claude?
I would like to think it is Pixar poking fun at itself, Dragon. I would like to think that. I would like to think they're trying to turn it into a meme.
I wonder, like, you have to imagine Pixar's gonna be smart enough to actually occasionally read the review. I'm not saying I know no one should ever really read there's always a question of should we read reviews or not, and I think it's part of like the learning experience. But there's things like when you're in the thick of it, you probably don't want to read the reviews. Maybe at some distance you want to, but in this case, I don't know. I guess in reading the reviews, perhaps it's like, yeah, maybe we overshot with Claude. Let's diffuse things a little bit. At least let's show that we're yeah, we know, guys, but it's kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, in Richard's Victims, yeah, it does sound like a parody of Family Guy.
Yeah,
or a Family Guy parody. Yeah. Oh, crazy. All right. Okay. Oh God, Dial of Destiny.
All right. So long story short, it's
we just did a spoiler cast on this yesterday, so
just broad strokes. It's a mixed bag. When I think we were expecting a slam dunk, just given who's directing this movie, it was it was more of a mixed bag than it should have been.
You know what Mangle doesn't do great with though, that I feel like we should have seen this coming a little bit more than we did.
What?
Like, I mean, Logan's awesome,
mm-hmm.
but Logan does not have any comedy in it.
Well, no, Logan has jokes in it.
Very, very few.
I mean, it has like natural humor. Though. It has natural humor.
But I'm saying, like, Indiana Jones as a franchise, and this is honestly something I realize that, like, it just feels off. It's like, and I feel like this is why I do prefer Crystal Skull, is that for as off as Crystal Skull was, it still had that Spielbergian humor. And this, it's, I don't know. Dial of Destiny for me, it's very much, I I don't even think it's a missed bag. I just think it's a boring movie. Not even really a bad movie. Like, it's competently made. It's competently shot. It looks okay. It's just it's boring. Like Richard's victim says, dial of boredom.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, Harrison Ford, Mickelson, they're wonderful in this movie. I think, I mean, again, Harrison Ford, he digs deep. He brings out some really good stuff. We opened strong. We almost finished strong, but then we kind of, without getting into the nitty gritty, let's just say we kind of soft pedaled things from.
I mean, there is one. I will give this movie credit. There is one particular moment, one dialogue beat with Ford in the third act that is genuinely one of my favorite moments in the whole franchise.
Mm.
One.
Of course, Helena and Teddy, they bring the movie down majorly.
Yeah, and and you know what? I really hate the fact that we have this whole like discourse on Helena of like, oh, if you don't like her, you're a sexist, or people are gonna assume you're a sexist, and it's like, it's just a bad character, guys. Can't we just say it's a bad character at this point?
That's the thing.
Without like attaching the whole like, oh, she's a Mary Sue or whatever, you know? It's
it
like,
really,
can't we just say that a character is poorly written?
It really pains me to dislike her because, and like dislike her in the theater too, which was it was like my barometer for like when something's really off. Like, oh man, I'm noticing these things in the film.
Right, yeah.
But it's just the fact that she's really good. I mean, I love ordinarily I love her in Fleabag. That's like the big show that made her career practically. You know, she's great.
I feel like if they would have like played up her unlikable qualities a little bit more and maybe made them a little bit more exaggerated.
Well, it's not even that. It's just the fact that she's unlikable and yet she's the goddaughter. So I don't know.
That's the problem. The problem is that she's very unlikable, and yet the movie is trying to like prop her up as like the next generation or something, and it just doesn't work. There's a big disconnect.
She's not the actual daughter or anything. Yeah, it's like she's kind of like an honorific title, practically.
I actually forgot to bring this up in the spoiler cast, but did it bother you that she wasn't Brody's daughter?
Well, ever since they revealed the whole thing of like, she's, I kept predicting it was going to be Marcus Brody's daughter, and I was kind of bummed out that wasn't the case. But but then again,
I will say that the Toby Jones character feels more natural. Like he feels like a more natural inclusion than the new characters in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull felt. Like the Oxley character, I felt like was a little bit like very awkwardly shoehorned in.
Oh, true. I'm mentioning everyone loves Toby Jones, so that works,
Yeah, like I could buy that Indy and Toby Jones had a full movie adventure together. I could buy that.
Yeah, but it's just at the end of the day, it's the fact that Marcus Brody is like he's been established for like all the films. There's even a gag. It's a really cute gag. There's a gag in Crystal Skull where it's after Marcus Brody because in real life the actor passed. He passed, but they have this gag where he has a statue and the Russians crash into the statue and the head falls off. And Mutt's like, and then Indy's looking at him like staring daggers. I'm like, hey. that was my buddy's statue. So the fact that Marcus Brody did mean a great deal to Indy, even though he was goofy and everything, Sensi Waller-Bridge would have been really good playing off as like the, as like the snarky daughter compared to her very humble, nice guy father.
Right.
I think there's not enough of a connection there. At the very least, if you're going to do the Godfather thing, it would have been a guy who we had a lot of fondness for. But then again, I'm not trying to knock down Toby Jones. Just the fact that there's something didn't click with her. In terms of what we're doing, it wasn't either not enough of a contrast, or at the very least, we didn't have enough reason. Like, hey, here's a character we just met, and we're supposed to really care about his goddaughter.
Should have been Sala.
Right,
as the sidekick, just saying.
Not as the goddaughter, but yeah.
Well, no, obviously not as the goddaughter. I mean, it could have been Sala's daughter. Like, obviously, you would have had to recast her at that point, but that would have been.
I don't want Sala's. Assuming his daughter was a lot more likable, though. But
right.
Anyway,
all right. And also, I really just do strongly think that Mangold took the whole like let's make Indiana Jones as miserable as possible thing a little too far. I don't think the whole stripping Indiana Jones down to nothing works for him as a character nearly as well as it works for Logan as a character.
Well, it doesn't work given where we go with the ending of the film. Even so, there's the fundamental flaw in stripping everything away from Indy is like, okay, if we strip everything away from him, especially this early on in the movie, What is he fighting for? Why does he want to go on an adventure? Why is he doing this? That's the problem. So one thing to Code Geass. I think it's actually Jacob told me it's pronounced Geass. The Code Geass anime fan says, "Is she a better or worse character than the Sun in King of Crystal Skull?"
Worse.
Yeah,
Definitely worse. I am a Mutt Williams defender.
Anyway, so here's with Mangle. It kind of occurs to me. Mangle's he's making quite the career on making old men miserable.
Yeah. Also, it is Code Geass. I apologize for saying Code Geass this whole time.
No. See, I've been doing it for years. I always thought it was Geese, but apparently it's Geass.
All right. All right. Moving on. Asteroid City. You haven't seen this, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's just the way that you said it. Because
wait a minute, did I not? I didn't. Wait. Yeah, it's because I thought you wanted to put all the poster stuff on there. That's why.
Okay. That's okay then. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So Asteroid City, Dragon, as you know, this was my most anticipated movie of the year. And also, as you know, I don't have a great track record with my most anticipated movies of the year actually panning out.
I have terrible luck with that, actually.
Thankfully, the luck has been subverted because this is my favorite Wes Anderson movie. Like, my all-time favorite.
Doesn't that sound like a rush to judgment? Do you really like it that much?
I saw it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon, this movie is just so compulsively watchable. I think that every scene just flows into each other just so well. There is a thing going on with the structure of this movie. And you know how Grand Budapest kind of has that Russian doll structure to it?
Yeah.
Well, this is like a more simplified version of that, and I actually think it works a lot better because I honestly think the Russian doll structure of Grand Budapest kind of holds that movie down a little bit for me. It makes the movie a little bit too like clinical as far as the structure. This one, it's just basically the structure is that what we're watching is a black and white PBS style, like masterpiece theater style documentary about the making of the play Asteroid City. And Bryan Cranston is the narrator. And he is fucking delightful, Dragon. I mean, obviously he's delightful. He's Cranston. But I mean, there's just something about the way that he delivers the narration in this. And he's on screen, too. You see him on screen. Like, he's an on-screen kind of like host, sort of like a Rod Serling kind of host, And he is just fucking, I don't know. There's like, he literally does nothing but exposition, but he's so good. Anyways, so the whole idea is that the black and white sequences are all the actual like behind the scenes of the play, and then the play itself is represented by like the grand panoramic actual movie with the color and everything. And they do a really interesting thing with the way that they shoot this movie, where it is shot out in the desert. And Wes Anderson, for the production of this movie, he literally just erected an entire small desert town. Everything in this movie is a set. And I love it for that. But also, there's elements of the set that very much look like a stage play, like the mounted backdrops and stuff. The fact that, so it's like, it's this awesome kind of like blending of stagecraft and movie production design. And again, like the look of this movie is just impeccable. It's so good. Like Wes Anderson, he keeps pushing and pushing and pushing his style. And I honestly think this is just the zenith of it. It's like the way the camera moves, the colors, everything about it is just freaking, it's so good. But also, I love the fact that the story kind of is taking place concurrently, where we have, the making of the play. And then, so within the making of the play, you have like Jason Schwartzman, like the actor, he's playing both the actor playing the role in the play, and obviously you get the performance of him as the character in the play. And, it's so good. I know that I'm not really selling it all that well. You kind of just have to watch it. I first heard about this play within a movie thing, and I was,
I was a little skeptical about it, but yeah, it just works. I don't know. It works really well for me. I don't know. There's just the whole movie is just it's a vibe movie. It's a hangout movie. It's very much an ensemble. Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson are certainly the two lead characters. Tom Hanks is also incredible in it. Like genuinely one of Tom Hanks' best performances since Captain Phillips, I think. And there's so many little running gags and character quirks, and like a lot of my favorite characters are actually some of the smaller ones. Like Maya Hawke plays a Sunday school teacher who is very, very like high strung about keeping track of her kids. And she's like, you can tell she's just like a powder keg of pressure about, making sure all these kids are in line and none of them are missing at any given time. And Steve Carell plays the manager of this little motel who's like just running around trying to please everyone and trying to run customer service. And it's like all these little roles are just, I don't know. Like for me, I think that when I think of something like Grand Budapest, I don't think Grand Budapest really landed for me in the same way that it landed for other people. Because, Robin is in this movie. Yeah. Because Grand Budapest has a really good kind of central relationship. But I also think that it's, again, with the timelines and everything, it's a little bit jumbled. And also just like, I feel like some of the supporting characters, like, and some of the cast members that show up in Grand Budapest, like what I'm trying to say here, and I'm not doing a good job of saying, is that like, in spite of the fact that this is like probably the biggest cast that Wes Anderson has ever assembled so far, I truly feel like it's a situation where every single person in this cast gets something, like some sort of memorable moment or some sort of memorable through line. And it's every one of them they're all used so well. Again, the production design in this movie, if this movie doesn't get nominated for at least best production design, I mean, that's going to be like the category this year that I am going to be following. As far as like, if the Academy doesn't nominate this for production design, it's just fucking forget it. They're clearly doing something wrong. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I know I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I'm not really selling the movie all that well. And honestly, Dragon, I truly don't think you're going to love this movie in the same way that I love it. I really don't think so. I really don't think it's gonna top Grand Budapest for you. But for me, I don't know, this does it. It is my favorite Wes Anderson movie. For me, it hits everything. It hits all the right beats. Visually, it's incredible. The story is very engaging. The pacing is the pace is very flowing, and you always feel like, in spite of the fact that it's kind of a hangout movie with a bunch of characters just sort of doing their thing, like, it's so good. It's easily my favorite movie of the year so far. And I think that every other movie is going to have like some competition as far as like, I can't like, it's going to be hard to top this one. I think it just really spoke to me.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Let's see. I guess that brings us to
Nimona.
Nimona, yes.
Did you watch this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Dragon, honestly, like, it is kind of crazy that this is like, for me, this is probably the third best movie of the month after SpiderVerse and Asteroid City. It's still fucking wonderful, though. I really love this thing. I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, I thought it was like, this is like, of course, it's like the Lost Blue Sky film. And it's done by the same directors as frickin' Spies in Disguise. And talk about an upgrade, man. I mean, I do think that this is one of those movies where there are some plot beats that are a little bit recycled. Inherently, I feel like this movie is a little bit of an Iron Giant kind of story of, like it's not what you are on the outside, but what's on the inside that counts, that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think between the world building and the fact that this movie does have some pretty complex politics to it that get explored really well, I don't know, man. This thing really got to me. I really ended up loving it.
Yeah, so apparently this is based on a graphic novel. I don't know if you know about that or not, but yeah, I love this. I thought it was refreshing. Admittedly, I gotta admit, with the animation style, mainly our pink shape-shifting character, Mona, a little reminiscent of Wish Dragon, only because that character is also a pink shapeshifter.
Right.
But again, there's it's a little more original though. This movie though, so in the Mo's a little bit more of an original flavor. Wish Dragon's kind of a repackaging of Aladdin, but it's good. I'll stand by Wish Dragon. A lot of people,
yeah, I mean, honestly, I say I make the comparison to Iron Giant, but honestly, that's really only in how the movie wraps up.
Yeah, I don't really see a big Iron Giant comparison. Like there's like an Aladdin comparison for.
But you see what I mean with the third act of the movie, though.
I do. I do. I see something kind of like that. Yeah. But yeah, seriously, this movie's ambitious. I mean, the moment that frame up happened at the top of the movie, I was just utterly gobsmacked. Like, oh, we're going here with it. Wow. And the idea of like we're having our hero kind of like framed as a villain, and he's like, oh god, there's the possibility. It's like we're getting to kind of Megamind territory here to a degree, and I was really impressed by that.
Sure.
And this the whole sci-fi night setting, like the futuristic medieval kind of setting.
I honestly think this movie did the world building that, like, it's kind of like the world building that we were hoping for with oh fuck. Oh, why am I blanking on the name? The fucking Onward.
I mean, we got good world building Onward though. With what we did.
Well, I guess with Onward, it's more suburban, and this is obviously more the city.
That's what I'm saying. Like this, yeah.
I'm just saying the world building. This is really ambitious.
Yes, the word is because of the LGBT stuff. That's what scared off Disney for this movie. Basically, Disney had an opportunity to approve like the last Blue Sky project, and they got gun shy.
Well, that just goes to show you that Disney is very performative when it comes to LGBT stuff. Then,
right. So that's the thing. So we made some bold choices here, and I'm so glad that the version that we ended up with here, just by the way things worked out, which essentially, Blue Sky, essentially, if I understand it right, I think basically Blue Sky had the project going, and then they got finished it with an animation studio at Netflix. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I think happened. Regardless, the fact that however it ended up getting done, they stuck by the core idea. I'm going to assume they did right by the source material, but I don't know about it. So regardless, it's the fact that, it's another animation win for Netflix. And I'm so glad Netflix has been kind of having that feather in their cap through all that has been going on there. It's the fact that, we have like our, the Sea Beast. We got, we have Nimona. We have, we have Klaus. We're having like a lot of these
machines.
Yeah, Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Which I still think Mitchell's versus the Machines is like the high point of Netflix animation. I don't think this tops that. But honestly, I think this is probably pretty close to Klaus as far as like the number 2 position goes.
To be fair, the Mitchell's versus the Machine, well, wonderful. That was more of just they kind of lucked into Netflix, where that was just like it was a Sony movie. But
yeah, you're right. That's true.
So I mean, but you're right. It's a Netflix movie, kind of technically though. Like this one, at least presumably was like finished via Netflix. I don't think it's. I could be wrong on that though. Maybe it isn't the same. But it was Mitchell's versus.
But if you look at this movie just as a Blue Sky movie, I honestly think it's the best one.
Well, I mean, its only competition is the Peanuts movie.
I think it's a little bit better than the Peanuts movie, just on the basis that the Peanuts movie, for me, the one thing I can nitpick with that movie is that it's got a little bit too much Red Baron stuff in it, and I can't nitpick the pacing of this movie at all. I think every story beat is really engaging.
Like, there was only one moment in this movie I was questioning, but then it kind of won me over to it, where it was the whole, we expose the truth, and then I mean, it's an impressive subversion, I guess. We expose our bad guy, and then the bad guy does like kind of a real life turnaround. Like I
love that, honestly. I thought that was really, really clever.
I know, that's the thing. Initially, Yeah, that's the thing. So initially, I was kind of scoffing at it, but then I thought about, well, yeah, that's how that would work. So I guess that's kind of. I mean, initially, I was like I overthink things all the time. That's like a thing I would overthink. Is like, there's no way they're ever going to mention that. Oh my god, they mentioned it. So I was like, I don't know. I feel about that. It's finally happened, but it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie was wonderful.
All right. Okay, why don't you tell them about the Flash?
Yeah, so The Flash, a frustrating film that has stuff going for it. I want to like this movie, but it's very tricky. It's a tricky movie, very. But yeah, so obviously Keaton impresses. He's the reason everyone's showing up for the movie. He did not disappoint in the slightest. I still will attest, and I mean the movie I think makes its best case for it with the weird spaghetti example. It makes the case for the multiverse thing, but I still will attest that this thing at its core should have been time travel versus multiverse, especially given that where we're at now between multiverse in DC versus multiverse in the MCU, where at the end of the day, SpiderVerse is the only one that's done it right. But regardless, just this I still it's like Flashpoint is simply a time travel story that basically creates one multiverse, like one like an Elseworlds, not multiverse. It basically creates an Elseworlds in terms of all the it creates the alternate 1985 from Back to the Future. That's essentially how Flashpoint works. Now, we basically found just an excuse to kind of blend multiverse. Now, again, Rohit did explain. I'm going to butcher the explanation here, but essentially, our buddy Rohit, he did kind of explain how the multiverse thing works. Where essentially he was unable to travel back to his timeline, his reality. He ended up traveling to a multiverse, in which is like this is just one of the Elseworlds in the plethora of many.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a sense to it. There's more logic to it than I give it credit for, but it just feels ultimately at the end of the day, why even bother with Flashpoint? We're just going to do a multiverse thing like this. Anyway, for me, the problem in the movie is that I hate young Barry Allen. The basically the Barry Allen who's in the multiverse that we travel to. He is he's the Ezra Miller I think we all should turn our vitriol to. He's the young, impetuous, annoying Ezra Miller that none of us really like. The other one at least is like, oh, the boy lost his mind.
I get the feeling that young Barry Allen kind of leans into the whole like, and what is up with brunch? You wait in line for essentially an hour for lunch. Like, right? Is it kind of a lot of that?
I mean, look, I don't mind the brunch thing, but he's worse than the. If you didn't
like the brunch thing,
that's what I'm saying. Look, if you don't like, I'm fine with the brunch. Okay, if you don't like the brunch, you're gonna hate this kid.
Oh man,
I think at least that's what the point being is like for the main bear. Here's the thing for me on principle, honestly, for the duration is I'm thinking like when the Flash is in the costume, he's good. When he's out of the costume, it's like, and there we go. Where it's like it's. I feel sympathy for our main Barry Allen, where we kind of hit on the point of like, oh, the boy lost his mother, and we hit like the sympathy of the mom card really well. Not as good as the Flash TV show, but we hit it pretty well. And that's the thing. The movie is competing with the Flash TV show very apparently. As it would go, they pretty much for my money, honestly, in all the Flash origins, the TV show did it the best because we have Reverse Flash, we have we have the frame up, we have the murder of the mother, we have everything going the way it probably should be, kind of like the best of version of with the TV show in terms of how you do the origin of the Flash. So the movie's got competition. I understand that, and Muschietti, he's doing a great job directing the movie in terms of how to visualize things. I know a lot of people are jumping after on the CG just to dissuade everyone. Look, the CG is noticeable in like the big effect part of the movie, but it's supposed to be, it's not real. It's like a trippy kind of heady, like time travel effect. All right.
So I don't buy that excuse. I'm sorry. I'll have to see it for myself.
Yeah, as I'm saying, you're gonna have to see it to see
what I
mean.
I know.
Because right now you're hearing like, oh, the CG is bad. And maybe
and I will admit that is what made me not want to like the Ezra Miller stuff was already one thing for sure. But then like when I heard that the CGI was really bad, I was like, okay, then why do I need to see it in the movie theater then? Anyways. Like that's kind of what led me to not see it in theaters. I'm like, I'll just wait for it to come to HBO.
I will say this though, the opening of the movie is great. It's a great opening for the Flash, just in terms of we're putting him in this insane situation that would lead him into essentially a Spider-Man No More Flash Pointy situation. Like, what's gonna make a guy throw his hands up in the air at the end of the day? Like, that was pretty crazy. Okay, I kind of buy that. We put him through a lot. And our Batman, all of our Batmen are rather good in this film. Let's see. And also, I'll tell you the saddest thing of all. I don't know if I think I told you this, so I'm going to summarize it briefly. So apparently, the premiere of this one, Kevin Smith talked to the son of Michael Uslan, who I've met the father. Nice, I love Michael Uslan. He's essentially the Godfather, a proper Godfather. He's the Godfather of Batman in media. So he is he asked the young Uslan boy, like, hey, where's your pops? Where's your father? Where is he? He says, oh no, he's at home waiting for the grosses, because if this movie does as well as The Batman, we're gonna get Michael Keaton in a Batman Beyond movie.
Oh no!
Which utterly devastates me hearing this. It's like, oh no, we were gonna have it. You mean after all that, this was like the last ditch effort to get it? We rested on the Flash.
Yeah, that's painful.
So that's sad.
I've said I told you this before, but I think the best case scenario we can get right now with a Batman Beyond movie is like a SpiderVerse style animated movie.
Yeah,
which would be cool, but like as you said, it's like, you know, it's not that's not you know, that's not a live action. It's like as cool as it would be, like we've specifically been wanting to see a live action.
Because again, we've had Batman Beyond animation rather well. We don't need to top that. I mean, look, I'm open to seeing Batman Beyond in animation. I'm admittedly now a little hesitant because we lost the voice of Bruce Wayne, but still, you know, it's just the fact that Batman Beyond coming back, period, is a welcome thing. But live actions, that's the mountain to climb. That's like, oh boy, we've done so much with, like, we've done Batman like to death in media. What's the
you know what's funny about Batman Beyond in live action though?
What?
Stephen Yeun wouldn't be too old to voice Terry.
That's true. Animation, not live action, yeah.
And Stephen Yeun, as you know, is kind of like my dream casting for Terry.
I know, and again, a younger Stephen Yeun would be perfect for Terry. You know?
Like, seriously, like Walking Dead Season 2 era Stephen Yeun would be absolutely perfect for Terry McGinnis.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Or young Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but again, we've... You know, we let that one go. And I don't even honestly. I'd possibly he's aged remarkably well. But the point being that
come on.
I mean, seriously, have you seen Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
I mean, I don't remember the last time I saw him, but like
I'm gonna tell you what. Here's the thing. I would part of me would like to defend Stephen Yeun for a moderate DH, or at least doing the Better Call Saul effect, where we give him a wig and we just kind of like spray him down a little bit, we kind of make him look a little younger. But it's the fact that Stephen Yeun, when he has that short haircut in Beef, it just doesn't, you know, it's just like the age is showing. Darn it. Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's see. So next up we have Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Why did I even go see this movie?
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's not bad. It's really not. It's a very passable, like, you know, like 6 out of 10 action movie that's very forgettable. But I don't know. It's definitely not as good as Bumblebee. I will say the first like act of the movie was, because like in the first act you really are just focusing on the main characters, and I feel like they are better fleshed out than like Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox ever were. So I'll give it that much. At least as far as the human characters go in this movie, they do genuinely feel like they have stuff to do, unlike the Michael Bay movies. And Pete Davidson plays like the best friend Car, and he's actually good. He's actually charming, believe it or not. And honestly, Dragon, the one thing about this movie that I do kind of like is that Optimus Prime in this movie has a chip on his shoulder about humans, and it's actually really interesting. It's like Optimus Prime is like going through his like edgy teenage years, and it's really fun to watch. And Peter Collins is still playing Optimus Prime all these years later. It's still the same voice that it was in the cartoons. And like, this is probably the most emotional range as far as just him having a real chip on his shoulder against humans. And, you know, like, it's probably the most range we've ever given him as far as like actually being able to perform, you know, the very complex character of Optimus fucking Prime. But yeah, I mean, the movie is very forgettable. Although did I tell you about what they set up at the end of this movie?
The G.I. Joe crossover.
Yes,
That's
yes.
real. That's happening.
That is real. Yeah. At the end of the movie, a guy literally hands the main kid a business card with G.I. Joe on it.
Again, like you have to wonder if they're gonna pull like a Bumblebee, like let's do like an actual closer to the thing. We're gonna like closer to GI Joe traditionally versus like we're stuck in the continuity of the GI Joe live action movies.
No, I definitely think they're gonna reboot G.I. Joe, but I'm not gonna lie, Dragon, this movie is pretty damn forgettable outside of like Optimus Prime being in his emo teenage phase. But yeah, that was a pop at the end. That was a pop of like, oh, okay, I would actually watch a Transformers G.I. Joe movie. It's probably not going to be a good movie, but it's interesting. So yeah, definitely not a movie I'm going to rewatch ever again, but it's not like this movie is definitely better than any of the Michael Bay Transformers movies. I'll at least give it that much. All right. Okay, so sell me on Stan Lee, Dragon, because I got to admit, I'm a little bit on the fence about watching it, just because, like, I'm kind of worried it's going to be a bunch of stuff I already know.
I mean, Tiki, look, this is a nice documentary on Stan Lee. It's, I mean, look, I think deep down we were all looking for something that maybe, kind of like looked a little deeper into like the towards the end of the man's life in terms of maybe some of the controversial stuff, or maybe like for example, I've been avoiding the controversial stuff with Stan Lee. Controversial stuff, what I mean is like the fact that things are really bad for him towards the end, in terms of like mismanagers like taking advantage of him and stuff, and like stuff with potentially family stuff. But I mean, I don't think I've had the stomach for it, but it was like I was wondering, is this the documentary that's going to make me face that, and I'm going to have to kind of like see how I feel about it. And ultimately it wasn't. They played it safe. Yeah, I shouldn't really.
It's like Disney Plus, Dragon. Of course it wasn't going to be that.
I know. It's the part of me wondered. I mean, now that, with them gone, like, are we going to like be bold enough to, part of me, I just wondered, okay, are we going to, at least.
I would say if this was like a theatrically released movie that didn't have anything to do with Disney, then maybe.
Regardless, I didn't have like a realistic expectation of really going there, but I was wondering if we're going to scratch the surface on it, or at least get into like some of the stuff, like even like beyond that, like some of like the criticism of Stan Lee, and we get into the main one that is still like talked about to this day. We do get into that, so here's the thing: we present the core stuff that we do know about Stan Lee, but the way we frame it, and we have it in his own words, and we use this is gonna be really cute, Diggy. All the past stuff, all the flashback stuff is used. You remember the very end of Ant-Man the Wasp 2? I mean, Ant-Man the Wasp, Ant-Man. Just Ant-Man
and the Wasp.
Yeah, I was looking for a subtitle that wasn't yes, Ant-Man the Wasp.
Yeah.
You had like the figurines during the end credits.
Yeah.
They have these really awesome like figurines of Stan throughout all of his life. Like that's how they retell the backstory. They use like these little figurines of him that's playing the audio of him recounting his life story over it. It's really nice. So this is probably the best presentation of one of the best presentations of Stan Lee recounting his life story in his own words. And you have we get into the whole credit debacle with Ditko and Kirby, and one of my favorite things in this though is that here's what really gobsmacked me. So I've sang the praises of that thing Robert Kirkman did to you, right? The whole Robert Kirkman Secret History of Comics.
Yes, yeah, and I've seen other things that Robert Kirkman has produced.
Yes, so Kirkman. I mean, still, I don't know if this necessarily measures up to that per se, but it is adapting a similar story there. But we do one thing uniquely different here with it, though. So in there it was like there's this famous radio interview that Jack Kirby did on his birthday, and Stan Lee called in, and they had essentially it was the second to last time they ever talked to each other, and it was like them kind of hashing out, like having a reunion, but also a bit of a fight on the radio. And Kirkman kind of frames that in kind of like a really loving way from the Stan Lee side of things, and here we do that, but then it's kind of a litmus test. We have this moment. We have it play out just kind of like in the Kirkman thing, where it's Stan Lee and Jack Kirby kind of having a reunion, but it kind of goes on a little bit, and we see it's not a happy ending per se. The way we linger on, the way we show is like, it's kind of stubborn old men to a degree. There's kind of like there's still some strife there. We kind of like and then we have like a realistic, it's not all fixed, which really impressed me. And I have to rewatch it because I don't believe I don't know if Kevin Smith popped up or not in it. If so, there's a disturbing lack of Kevin Smith and Mallrats referenced in this when we do the big cameo kind of the addressment of like all the great Marvel cameos. But
I mean, honestly, even outside of Mallrats, I feel like Kevin Smith just did a lot to just like make Stan Lee into the pop culture icon that he became later in life.
I fully agree. I mean, the thing we don't broach on in this, which again, this probably gets into some of the family stuff, maybe is the fear. I don't think that really should have been a fear, but it's the fact that Kevin Smith was kind of like the adoptive son of Stan Lee to a degree.
A little bit. Yeah.
I mean, by Stan Lee's own, like pretty much Stan Lee, like his handler, like the good handlers. Not
in other words,
his non-biological father.
There we go.
No, it's seriously the fact, like towards the end, people were like, like circa 2014, even like there was like the word, like, Stan really thinks of you as like a son, Kevin. Like, like that was like so sweet to me. So anyway, this is a nice informative summation of the man. It's triumphant. It's good. I mean, regardless, you're going to walk away with this thinking like we need more documentaries on the rest of the comic town, like the John Romita Seniors and the Jack Kirby's.
I mean, you see, I feel like documentaries like that would be more valuable to me because I genuinely don't know a lot about those guys.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I recommend him. He's given all the investment we have in Stanley. I think it's worth all. You got to watch it, man. Come on.
All right. Okay, next up for me, The Boogeyman. Great Stephen King short story adaptation. Dragon Dave DeSmalchin pops up for he's a one scene wonder in this movie, man.
Isn't he always?
He is wonderful in this movie. He pops up for he basically plays the scene that essentially was the short story, and then the rest of the movie kind of balloons out from that. Anyways, the other big casting in this movie that I really was drawn to was Sophie Thatcher, who's also in Yellow Jackets, as well as the Book of Boba Fett. Remember, she was one of the biker people. But yeah, so she's awesome. She's kind of the lead in this movie. So the whole idea of this movie, very simply, is that the boogeyman, with the whole essentially, it's like, what if Monsters Inc. was a thing, except the monsters in Monsters Inc. were just full-on predators who killed your kids. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't. It's like, what if the boogeyman was actually real, essentially, and what if the boogeyman actually did kill your kids? And it kind of
they call that Nightmare on Elm Street. But go on.
The whole thing about this movie that does kind of intrigue me is the fact that, which is sort of the selling point of the short story, is sort of the ambiguity of most of the people in the media, when multiple kids in the same family die very close to one another, they're gonna look at the parents. And so in this movie, it's kind of like there's an epidemic of parents murdering their children, except all the parents are innocent. It's all actually the fucking boogeyman. And I actually think that's really interesting as a jumping off point. I don't think the movie does enough with that as a premise, as far as just kind of exploring the sort of ambiguity of that. But I do think it's a really chilling idea. I do think once this movie kind of it does sort of devolve into just we gotta kill the monster, and I know how to kill the monster. But it's still good. I would say it's a solid 7 out of 10 horror movie. It's pretty much in the same vein as The Black Phone was last year, although it's not quite as good as The Black Phone was. But it's sort of in that same vein. So I did enjoy it. It's nothing to... I'm not raving about it by any means, but I thought it was a solid little thriller. Richard's Victim says we need a documentary on 1941. Yes, we do, sir.
Well, I mean, we pretty much have it.
No, you're right. We do. There is a making of documentary on it, Richard's Victims. It's on YouTube. But what I'm saying is we need a tell-all, Dragon.
Yeah.
All right. So, I believe you have the last three, right?
Yes, I do. One of these is going to go by like that.
Okay, go ahead.
Extraction 2. You remember Extraction, don't you?
I remember it coming out. I never watched it.
Yeah, the Chris Hemsworth action movie.
Yeah.
I believe Sam Hargrave directed him. One of the action guys from John Wick. Well, Sam Hargrave, he's a great stunt guy. I believe he was on John Wick. I don't know if he was like the guy. I know he didn't direct John Wick. I'm saying I think he was in it as like one stunt coordinator. Point being, anyway, Hargrave's like good action guy. I believe he also oversaw a lot of the Russo brothers productions in terms of the stunts and everything. Anyway, Extraction 2, action's good, story very, very thin. It's let me put this the way. Okay, this will sum it rather nicely. Okay, so the Chris Hemsworth character, who basically Extraction just should have been a one-off, where he basically dies at the end of Extraction. Then there's an ambiguity. It ended on ambiguity where it's like the kid may or may not see him when he peeks up from the water from the pool. It's like he may see like him walking, and that's the thing. It should have left on that note, and like, okay, that's as far as we get with it. But no, because of that, we need to bring him back to make money on Netflix for the Netflix action movie. So the premise of this one is, okay, so he survived. We don't address that pool scene at all. And he's going to save his ex-wife's sister and her family.
Oh, God.
I'm not making that up. That's the premise.
No.
Tiki, that tells you everything you need to know about the story of this movie.
Yeah, basically.
There you go. Moving on. So let me tell you about Take Care of Maya.
Okay, I saw this on Netflix. I definitely was interested, but I figured you'd watch it and give me the report on it. So
yeah, I mean,
I was right.
Yeah, the story's compelling. I'll give you that. It's I think part of me thinks you might get more of it than I did, actually. I
do have some experience in caregiving, so
that's what I'm saying. I mean, this is good. I mean, it warrants a rewatch, I think, for me. But I don't know. I think it might be really dialed into it. It's kind of it's a shocking documentary about how Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital really has really screwed the pooch a lot with families and situations here, where essentially what happened is you have this girl who has a condition. It's kind of like let's call it next level seizures. Let's just call it that. It's like there's like an abbreviation like CRCS or something. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's kind of like the Chuck's the hypersensitivity to electricity, that whole thing where his skin feels on fire and everything.
Okay.
It's kind of like that, to the point where she can't walk almost from the pain. So kind of like that. Anyway, so the girl, basically, the doctor prescribes them ketamine, and they.
Oh no! Oh God!
So a doctor prescribes ketamine.
That is a very bad drug.
I know, that's the thing. So a doctor prescribes them ketamine. They're already being misled by the medical field to a degree, but it gets results. So basically it's like some dosage of ketamine that is supposedly safe, and they give it to the girl anyway. So they go to Johns Hopkins one time, and they tell her, "No, my daughter needs ketamine. That's what the doctor we went to prescribed him." And it basically leads to this hugely horrible miscommunication that ketamine, these people are crazy. We're gonna
okay. So basically, the reaction that I literally just had.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Well, it's not funny, Tiki. What happens is they call in CPS, and they basically forbade they forbade this girl from seeing her family again.
I don't know if I could stomach this one, honestly.
So that's what it basically. It's that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be dark for you, man. But if you work up the courage, it's worth a watch.
I am intrigued just because, like, at first I was on the side of like, what the fuck are you doing giving someone ketamine?
Well, that's the thing. So it's basically this.
It sounds like it's very morally ambiguous. Is that true?
I mean,
like, are you not 100% on the family side?
I mean, I can see you maybe looking at it that way. I don't. I think it's pretty clear cut. But I mean, there's room for interpretation on that one. I won't lie to you. They don't really. It's like you could have with any of these documentaries in terms of like you're kind of the David versus Goliath thing, technically. So I mean, I don't know. Basically, you have this mother who basically was fought tooth and nail to get her daughter out of this situation, out of this miscommunicated situation, and it's heart wrenching and ends in tragedy. I'm gonna tell you that much.
I mean, I guess the reason why ketamine in particular like stands out to me is that it's like the one drug that I have like firsthand witnessed somebody like really not have a good experience with. So like I did take it myself, but you know, like I definitely have seen people's firsthand reactions to it, and it's not pretty.
Anyway, so you have like the sobering realization by when you get kind of close to the third act, where it's like this has happened to a lot of other families too. And this is that, you know, so basically these little incidental miscommunications, and really, and the reveal of this is really good when they have like they do that text on the screen. I don't mean like the biopic text. I mean like they have like little text messages on a screen or email correspondence.
Oh yeah, right.
And it's this moment of like the doctors communicating amongst each other. I guess they seize the they seize the messages or something legally, so they're able to put it on there. Where it's like this whole thing of like oh yeah, did you hear about the family? Yeah, but you know we shouldn't feel bad about that. It's like oh man, that's
oh Jesus.
Really, basically them like doubling down, refusing to admit wrongdoing. It's like oh wow, basically the whole thing. Well, the damage has been done. We can't undo it now.
Right,
it's like one of those sort of things. Man. Like, oh God.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to have the heart for that one.
Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, so then lastly, something for Pride Month, in a sense. Rock Hudson, all that heaven...
no, you're right, that is a very solid Pride Month pick.
All that heaven allowed.
Yeah.
I'd recommend this, dude. This one actually you can see.
I want to get to it, for sure. I'm interested.
Yes, of course, Rock Hudson, I think matinee idol is the right word for it. You know, he's essentially soap operas and matinees. I mean, Rock Hudson was like a classic movie star for the kids out there. And this guy was essentially... It's a similar story to Tab Hunter, if anyone's ever heard that. He has a documentary on Netflix, too, which is good. But basically, Rock Hudson was like the premier star version of what happened with Tab Hunter. You had the leading man, good-looking kind of guy type, not really a defined character, but he looked good and the women loved him. And it's basically this kind of tragedy in Hollywood of like it's a sad thing in Hollywood where it's like the leading man forced to keep his sexuality secret because it would have killed his career back then, legitimately kill his career if people found out, even just found out that he was gay. So it was kind of a lock and key sort of thing. And basically, it's people that knew him intimately, like reflecting on like their relationships with him, and then like good friends of his and female co-stars and everything, just like kind of remarking like he was just really this really stand up guy. He was a nice man, and he had to keep this part separate. But here's the sell: the media hounded Rock Hudson to the ends of the earth to get him to admit it. And it was that really cruel thing of like the media had to have known like if they did get this.
It's so crazy to me. Like you and I, we literally lived through the era of like, and this was obviously like the 2000s. I'm just thinking about like just how shitty the media was to gay people, just, you know, on the basis of like them being depicted as stereotypes for the longest time.
Yeah, you and I grew up in the stereotype era. We weren't in
you
and I, we weren't in the AIDS crisis. We were in the stereotype era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing. So this gets into that too. Like the third act obviously takes turn with the AIDS crisis, and then things get really severe with the whole, you know, all the
that's the AIDS stuff is mostly where I've heard his name is in relation to, because correct me if I'm wrong, but he was like the person to convince Ronald Reagan that AIDS was something that need to be dealt with, right?
Yeah, so and they get into this in the documentary. He was friends with Nancy Reagan. So by proxy of her, that's how the issue, you know, got to him, but very reluctantly. And honestly, not until...
And after way too much time.
That's the thing. If I recall, and I think the documentary will probably specify this, I think it was after he contracted that Nancy Reagan finally got the message across there. But yeah, it's you know, it's a good thing. There's one thing I want to tell you, but I don't want to give it away for you. There's like one... in the whole thing with the AIDS crisis in Rock Hudson's, like there was something that happened and you feel really bad for him. He was in a very untenable position where he was kind of forced to do something. And it's this heartbreaking story of like, he had to do this and he knew it was dangerous and he just had to do it anyway. And it's a sad story for all parties involved, but it's like, oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I'll definitely look into it.
Yeah.
All right, Richard's Victims, really quick. He says, in relation to the Boogeyman. So it's like another Stephen King book, like The Outsider, which is about a monster that disguises itself as a person, as another person. And when it kills a person, the real guy has to deal with that. Yeah, I mean, that's the sell. That's kind of like the inciting incident of the Boogeyman. I think my problem with the Boogeyman is like what you're describing is like a more interesting story and kind of what I was hoping the story would go into. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the setup for the boogeyman. The boogeyman, like I says, it kind of just devolves into a generic, like, we have to kill the monster sort of story. But I do wish it would have lingered on the whole thing of the parents being the ones to blame. I wish it would have lingered in that more. All right. Okay, so moving on. Let's get to TV.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and start with yours.
Well, I thought you didn't get to this?
No, I didn't get to this one. I just got to Arnold.
Ah, man. Like, should we swap it, or?
Do you think that's... Yeah, I'm fine swapping it. Okay.
All right, we're going to start with Arnold first, kids.
All right. All right, so Arnold, documentary on Arnold Schwarzenegger in 3 parts. What I like the most about this is the fact that, like, you know, we get the athlete, the actor, and then I forget what the last part is.
American.
American, that's right. There we go. I knew it was another
George
A.
Liquor, American.
And I do think that it's set up really well. Like, honestly, in a way, it's like it kind of feels like 3 different documentaries. Yeah. You know what I mean? I do think that it's a little bit of a puff piece as far as there's some interesting stuff that comes to light. I honestly think the most interesting part is the athlete part, because a lot of that stuff is just stuff that we didn't really know about him, I think.
The bodybuilder part, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, just his struggles in that area, and like kind of breaking into it and stuff. I thought that was really interesting. I think the actor part, that was probably like, just sort of like reiterating stuff that we'd already known, which is again kind of like my one sort of like, I don't really care for when documentaries.
Well, it's nice seeing the rise though. It's nice seeing like him turning around after all the hard work in the bodybuilding. Like he's shifting gears,
And then the politician part is definitely, again, very interesting. So
I got to be honest. I loved hearing Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about twins. So I mean, that was like a nice little part of the middle thing, because no one ever talks about twins enough. It always goes Kindergarten Cop. What about twins?
I inherently think Twins is a better movie than Kindergarten Cop.
We'll get there. But also, here's something in the third act that was really nice. The whole I really loved Arnold Schwarzenegger reflecting on his illegitimate son. Of course, to the son that would make Arnold. Well, actually, no, never mind. It doesn't work then. Never mind. But he actually is his biological father. Anyway, but no, the fact him reflecting on the illegitimate son, actually having a lot of pride, and there's like I don't know, it was kind of a nice. It's nice, kind of. We address the layers and the imperfections of Schwarzenegger as well. I mean, obviously, they're capitalizing on FUBAR right now. That new show Arnold Schwarzenegger's done for Netflix. They got some sort of deal with him, which is why all the Schwarzenegger movies are there. Oddly, not staying there, at least for a while. Like, they were briefly there for like a month, and we're getting rid of them like Twins and Last Action Hero.
Yeah, that's annoying.
That's baffling to me. But regardless, it's the fact that, it's kind of like, may the Schwartz be with you month, with all the Schwarzenegger stuff. All right. So going from bodybuilders to muscles and mayhem and unauthorized story of American gladiators.
So bodybuilders?
Well, I mean, they're more bodybuilders, I'm just saying. It starts off with bodybuilders. Yeah, so
I'm actually really nostalgic for the American Gladiators reboot. If this would have been about that, I probably would have watched it without question.
I mean, still, this is like in the vein of the Netflix docuseries. I think we've been really enjoying, like the whole Pepsi "Where's My Jet" sort of thing. It's just like, I don't know. It's just this. It's the story of kind of like the kind of the gladiator challenge hysteria craze. The physical challenge craze, like you and I relish on Double Dare. This is kind of the precursor to that in a sense.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a good selling point.
Yeah, because think about it. It's the whole, this is them, like, they have, like, they're fighting with the giant Q-tips, like Phil is fighting with, Big Bob and Hey Arnold.
Sure.
Jello. You don't get that without American Gladiators.
Of course.
So all that's it. Was like the foundational elements for a lot of that stuff here. It's kind of bodybuilders plus a game show. It's essentially what the equation is for what American Gladiators was, and it's just sort of this. We have these animated kind of retellings of these fun stories of like these gladiators, kind of reminiscing about the fun stories along the way during this crazy time period in which they kind of became overnight sensations. And it's an interesting story. It's a story of egos and steroids and relationships and action figures. It's a little bit. There's a little side with the action figures is really kind of nice. So they're holding their action figures and talking about them. It's kind of funny. But that's the thing. I think this is up your alley. I mean, given the fact that we're always facing the potential of burnout on the true crime stuff, this is a nice way to shake it up. You should watch it.
I should.
Yeah.
You sold it to me.
There you go.
All right. Next up, Hunter season 2. I finally got around to it. Yeah.
Finally.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is really good. I will say though, I'm a little bit mixed on which season I prefer. I think I'm leaning towards season 1.
Yeah.
Just season 1 had just a really, really good build up. Obviously, this season doesn't really have Dylan Baker besides just the one very brief appearance. So that sort of instantly sort of brings it down. I'm not going to lie. I do think the whole like Hitler being alive thing is, there's certain plot points in the season that I think are a little bit rushed. I still can't really wrap my mind around what happened with Joe. Where it's like, I guess he gets kidnapped and brainwashed, but then why does he come around so easy? I think that plot was a little messy. I do think Jennifer Jason Leigh was a great addition to the cast. I honestly, one of my favorite episode plots was just the whole the sitcom plot of like, please, you gotta pretend to be my great aunt, but not my Nazi hunting great aunt. Please, just for one lunch. Come on.
I gotta be honest, that one was a little bit like, yeah, I don't know if we needed that.
I thought that was a lot of fun, honestly.
No. I know. Here's the start of it. I'm with you with the start of it. Is the way it panned is like, well, she's gonna find it anyway. It's just you couldn't keep. I don't know.
No, I agree. Just the fact that Jonah was like actually trying. If I was Jonah, I would very much be completely upfront with her at that point.
Right.
It's like
there's one episode I gotta get your thoughts on.
Okay. Oh, episode 7, I'm guessing.
But whatever the penultimate, I forget if it was how many.
Yeah,
episodes,
that's
8 or 9 episodes. Was 8 or 10 episodes?
It was episode 7. The house.
Yes,
right?
7. Yeah, the house. That's what I gotta know.
Oh God! I mean, I think that's probably the best episode of the whole series.
Because when I saw the episode, the first thing I thought was Tiki would eat this up.
And it's wonderful. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's very Twilight Zone-esque.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I also really love the ending to the show in general. I think that last beat is really great.
Of course, the trial is wonderful.
And the stuff with Pacino is good. I don't necessarily know. I feel like very early on in the season, you kind of know where it's leading to. And it I don't know. I don't necessarily know if it was worth stretching that plot out the whole season. I almost kind of feel like it should have been like one standalone episode. But yeah, I don't know. I still think I prefer season 1. I just think season 1 is just overall structurally a lot more solid. But this season had a lot going for it. I honestly think Logan Lerman just really upped his game as far as the acting goes this season.
He's great. Just my little nitpick is I don't like his new look for season 2, but yeah,
I like the look.
At the very least, initially it was jarring with the time jump, and it took some time to. Honestly, my only issue with season 2 period is our time jump into things is just given how we end things off. It takes a while to get on board.
Okay, I will say, now that you said that, I will say one of the things that I felt wasn't really explained all that well, and I was kind of hoping that there would be like a big dramatic reveal, and there really wasn't, was like, why did the Hunters disband?
I know that's the problem. That's the issue I have. I can get everything else like in terms of where the characters are, but like, what did Jonah necessarily do?
We literally don't explain it.
So that bothers me. We mentioned it in dialogue.
I'm with you.
We mentioned in dialogue in like one scene, but it's like, well, I gotta get a little. Like, we don't do a flashback on that. We're gonna do all those Meyer Hoffman flashbacks, not one flashback on Jonah. So that's my one.
Meyer Offerman flashbacks. Like, I feel like on one hand, it's cool to see him assembling the team and stuff. On another hand, like I said, I like it's all building to him, like ordering the death of the Ruth, which is something I saw coming from about halfway through the season. So it just, by the time that actually got to its conclusion, it just sort of felt inevitable, and it didn't really have the impact that it probably should have.
I mean, I like the fact that we found a way to work Pacino in Pure, because I wasn't expecting to see him at all, really, in the second season. So, I mean, I was initially like, oh, okay, I see. I kind of see what we're doing here. And then I went to that direction. I like that reveal, but in terms of like stretching out the way we did, you do have to wonder.
Yeah. Right. But I am glad that I finally saw the show. It's definitely, it's definitely been on my to-do list.
And that's the end, so.
Mm-hmm. All right. Skull Island season 1. Did you get around to this one?
No, I did not.
Okay, yeah, I liked it a lot, Dragon. I think you'd like it too. I think it's got some, Mae Whitman's in it, right?
I think I heard you mention that.
Yeah, so, she plays like one of the lead characters. I think you would really like her character at the very least.
Well, I do love Mae Whitman, so.
Of course. So this is obviously taking place in the same universe as the DC MonsterVerse. But honestly, I just kind of look at it as its own thing. Like there's really not a lot of callbacks or anything. I think the biggest callback that there is the fact that they mention Hollow Earth a couple times, but that's really about it. And I think this is a damn good little action adventure show. I think it's got a really good pace to it. Kong in particular is a big highlight. Like the way that they animate Kong, the scale of him. I also love the fact that they really, really slow build Kong. Like he's not at the forefront. He very much is kind of like a background element of the show that you get little bits and pieces of until about halfway through. And I really love that build up. I think the characters are generic, but at the same time, they're entertaining. They're fun. You want to root for them. I especially love the dad in this show, who is literally, his name is just Cap for the captain, which of course, Dragon, we have a certain Cap that we have an affinity for. So I thought that was fun. Let's see. I think the creature designs, the action, it's all really well done. It's just as far as like just being a solid action adventure show. And I will give it this. It does end on a pretty massive cliffhanger. And I hope to God it actually gets a second season because of that. I really hope it gets a second season. I would be peeved if it didn't. So yeah, I would recommend this, Dragon. I think you'd have fun with it.
Okay. All right, let me tell you about Citadel.
All right.
So Citadel, I mean, if you're on a Hunters kick, again, he's not the only showrunner on this, but David Wheel, the guy who did Hunters, works on the show. He's one of the 3 showrunners. Anyway, so this is a show after Hunters. The Russo brothers produced this, and mainly from a production value side of things, because it does look like a polished kind of Russo brothers sort of thing. So I mean, like where you have a nice scale. So this is definitely the Russo brothers trying to channel as much Winter Soldier as they can. So I appreciated that. It's Richard Madden, of course. He's a lot of people, some MCU talent from the Eternals. but still, Richard Madden, great actor though. Want to give him props there. So yeah, the premise is Richard Madden is a spy for Citadel who loses memory, as we reveal, as part of like a protocol in the agency where there's this thing you can do where you can erase a spy's memory, but you can have like a backup thing, like a needle somewhere. And Stanley Tucci, the Tooch is in this, man.
Oh, nice.
Stanley Tucci is his handler and his friend. Now, he's not in it for this is going to go for 2 seasons, so he's in the story, but he's not exactly with him through the whole story. But he's there and he's in the story, and we have flashbacks and stuff. He's just not, like buddy with them entirely. Regardless, so the idea is like, he has amnesia. He started a life, and basically Tucci shows up to pull him back into things. And so he's the idea. You have this guy who built this life. He's become an average Joe, but he's thrown into some real dire stakes with espionage, with great Russo action going on, and real like solid like true life espionage. It feels like the show has great music. It's very sleek. It's got great production values. It's a simple. It's 6 episodes. They're dense episodes. It's 6 episodes. It kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger because they do their comeback for second season for, I guess, broadly a 12-episode story. It's it's pretty cool, but again, we are halfway through, so I can't tell you overall how it's going to go at the end of the day, just based on the information we have with 6 episodes into our story. Like we have like twists and reveals and stuff, and it's just it's. I don't know. I'd rather enjoyed it. I know the critics aren't loving it. I rather enjoyed it. I've been liking it.
Okay, cool.
I mean, David Wheel knows how to put a show together, man. I know he's like 1/3 of the equation here, but I think his stuff's showing.
All right. Well, Dragon, let me tell you about my new favorite comfort TV. Like, I know it's trash, but it's so fucking watchable. Let me tell you about a man named John Taffer, the man at the forefront of the TV show Bar Rescue. Dragon, this guy is such a fucking enigmatic personality. He is so compulsively watchable. Basically, I really don't need to tell you anything more about the show beyond it's Kitchen Nightmares, the Gordon Ramsay show where he goes in. Yeah. It's like that, except with bars. Like, it's literally that. Except John Taffer is basically like the angry, like hardened New York bartender version of Gordon Ramsay. And Dragon, this man is even more aggressive than Gordon Ramsay is, believe it or not. And it is so fucking watchable. I love it. So every episode, every episode starts with him staking out a bar, which is like, it's a really ridiculous setup because it's like, okay, guys, there's camera crews in here. On some level, these people must know that, that the bar rescue team is in there. It's like you can't act like he's just surprising him. But anyways, he's sitting in the car, he's watching this footage of the bar, and he's like nitpicking all these things, like that server just handled the food without washing his hands, and stuff like that. Like, they've been waiting a half hour for their drink and they haven't even been served yet, or like the bartender's drinking and he's acting belligerent. And so he'll just go into these bars and just burst down the doors and just start swearing his ass off at these bar owners. And, it's so compulsively watchable. It's so fun. I love it. It's one of those shows where it's like, I just kind of picked different episodes. I didn't watch a full season or anything, but man, it's definitely going to be one of those shows that I'm just going to go to, kind of like Pawn Stars was back in the day. It's like, I call it a sick day show, if that makes sense. Just something very much if you just want to turn your brain off and not think about anything at all and just get kind of a chuckle about this angry New Yorker just tearing people a new one. It's so fun. It's so fun. It is the least classy show. Well, besides the other reality show that I have on the month, but it's just, I don't know. It's great.
Okay. All right, let me tell you about a chipper little show. Let me tell you about Jared from Subway catching.
Oh no! I don't have the stomach for this one. I already know I don't have the stomach for this one.
Yeah, you probably don't.
I really should watch the Army Hammer documentary.
I started that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of I didn't really feel compelled to finish it after a certain point, but But that might just be me. That's more of, I don't know if that's a headspace thing.
I mean, you know me. I was pretty invested in Army Hammer before everything came out.
I mean, look, let me put it this way. I think you're gonna like that Army Hammer documentary.
Okay.
I don't know. For me, it's not that I'm never gonna finish it. I just got sidetracked and I didn't really feel compelled. Like, I don't think I'm gonna get to it this month.
It happens.
So anyway, Jared Subway here. So this is like, I suspect since the Max changeover, this is like an ID discovery thing, because this thing had a whole lot of edited out commercial breaks.
Really? That's funny.
It's like one of those things where it's like, and next we're going to tell you about this. And
that's always really awkward to watch on the streaming service. Yeah.
If we're going to stream it, can't we edit that part?
Right.
We're always making like little changes, like the Daryl Hannah and Splash. Can't we?
Exactly.
Can't we edit out the commercial breaks? Anyway, so this is so I mean, initially it's kind of this uplifting tale when we got started at the beginning, at the whole thing. Well,
do they really go through the whole he lost a bunch of weight?
Just in like the beginning of like the first, because you have to do with any, like, you have to see, okay, why is this so shocking? Start with the whole, like, maybe some DNA of the monster, one could say, where essentially, he was, this fat kid who was bullied, and he basically, decided, I'm going to eat Subway sandwiches, and he ended up losing weight, and it became a phenomenon, and became this cultural icon. But here's where things get really interesting, though. I'm watching it, and he literally, it's such as the moment in which it all turns south is just so innocuous. It's really interesting, where he was doing an interview with some news lady. This is the news lady brings him down. He just did an interview with her, and he's whispered to her very casually, I won't repeat it, something just really horrific to this newswoman. And I forget if I don't know if they recreated, they actually have the footage or not, but it's like this thing where he's like, between setups, he leans over and whispers something like really, really horrible to her. Not like threatening to her, just like something horrible with the stuff that he was into with kids. It's the whole thing. And just like as if he's making random chit chat.
Why?
And that's the thing. That's what's baffling about it. He just does that, and she's haunted by it to the point where I should look into this guy. And she basically gets into this whole undercover operation to basically get all this dirt on him, and to get him to, like, all the evidence. And it comes at a personal cost to her too, where again, the fact that she had to, in going undercover, she had to basically play along and also say horrible things about her own children.
Oh no! Oh God!
And that's the thing. And so it's dark, but it's really fascinating what this lady had to put herself through to get him. And it's like, obviously it was kind of for the greater good. And here's the you want to hear the dirtiest thing of the whole thing?
Not really.
Well, it's not dirty. Well, it's just dirty in terms of like hindsight 2020.
So all right.
So the fact that when you have like the montage of like, oh yes, Jared from Subway, formerly beloved, and with the formerly beloved clippage, I guess to promote the movie, he did have interaction with the Muppets.
Oh no!
Yeah.
God damn it!
I know. That's like the dirt. Oh no! I think it was the 2011 Muppets. I forget when he was found out, so I forget if it was like around 2011 or not. That type. Anyway, because I remember in here's the thing. Whenever I think of Jared from Subway, I do think of the joke from the original Deadpool movie, where it's like he calls calls the Jared Reese character, the very predatory looking guy in a suit. He's just like, hey Jared, I'll have the footlong fully loaded. So that's always what I think of when I think of Jared from Subway. I think of Deadpool making that pedophile joke to him. Anyway, so again, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's an interesting story. So I'll give ID discovery this. I wish they would edit out their commercial breaks, but they have some stuff. I think the Army Hammer thing might be ID discovery as well.
Okay,
but that was produced, so it does not have the commercial breaks in there, so you're safe from that one.
All right. I'm just going to breeze right past this one. It's barely even a TV show, but it's kind of got some so bad it's good quality, so I did just kind of binge the season. Judge Steve Harvey, man.
Justice with the mustache.
Okay, my thing with Steve Harvey though is that Family Feud is like the one other thing besides Survivor. Like I don't watch it every night with my grandparents, but like like basically it's one of those things where it's like if I walk past, if I walk into the room and they're watching Family Feud, I will almost always like just watch the rest of the episode with them. And like we love, my grandma fucking loves Steve Harvey, man. She adores Steve Harvey, and it's adorable. And essentially what Judge Steve Harvey is, and it's kind of weird because my grandparents don't really like this show, and I think that's just because they can't wrap their head around the idea of what this show actually is. Like they kind of take the whole like it being a court thing too seriously, and they're like, oh, he shouldn't be doing a legal thing. That's ridiculous. But the thing about this show, Dragon, is that this show is essentially just Steve Harvey's outlet to just like make jokes the whole time. Like, as in, like he's more of the funny man on this show than he is on Family Feud. Like this show is very much like trying to sort of bottle up like the Steve Harvey Family Feud memes into a TV show. And it's utter nonsense. It really is. I mean, if you look at it from the capacity of it being a serious like legal court show, it's so fucking ridiculous. But it is compulsively watchable, though. I think Bar Rescue is a little bit more just digestible, just because Bar Rescue very much has like a really solid structure, and it's very like all the bar owners are different characters, and so you get to see the host interacting with a bunch of different personalities. Whereas this, it's basically just Steve Harvey being Steve Harvey. But I don't know. Like I said, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very, very disposable, though, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
All right. So Manifest season 4 part 2. This is the end of the whole series. Yes, we already got a revival on. Basically, a Manifest was always building to the resolution to a mystery, very much kind of like the very Leftovers-esque.
Yeah. That's definitely what it reminded me of.
It was kind of Leftovers meets. It's kind of Leftovers meets Infinity War. The Thanos snap, essentially, is kind of the idea. The whole like the blip of it all, specifically. Anyway, so season 4 was kind of the resolution of this, and what they did is they kind of found a way, because at a certain season they had this thing where there's like a death date, which would have been they went forward 5 years in time. Basically they went to Jamaica, and on their way back they disappeared for 5 years, and they arrive and everyone's 5 years old. That's the premise of Manifest. So they learned at a certain point in the show, and they're trying to find out what the heck's going on with them. They they have a death date, which means in 5 years they're all going to die, as if they would have died when they were on the plane, as in like they would I guess have like a drowning related death of some sort. So what we do here is, so I guess ultimately the way it worked out is that part 1 was like the 4th year, and then part 2, essentially we're in the end game now. We're in the 5th year. We did a time jump between seasons, so we're in a way we did get our 5 seasons based on that breakdown of the two halves, which I thought was pretty clever in the end of the day. Yeah, so essentially where we end in this season is that the government has stepped in. We've kind of imprisoned the passengers on the flight rather unjustly. Josh Dallas, he always impresses. I love his dynamic with Vance, who's the actor's name I'm blanking on, but he was Hoffman from Daredevil back in the first season. He's good. I mean, I never expected that guy to have such range and to be able to carry a character like this for the show, but he did. And he did a wonderful job. Never underestimate the character actor, kids. So, I'll admit there's still a lot of BS with that cult leader character. I couldn't stand, and somehow she survived the last half of part 1, and so she survived. She's still kind of a bother, but aside from that, though, I think we ended in a really cool way. I don't think anyone would have predicted. Ended in kind of a trippy biblical way. That's interesting. It takes it to a Twilight. It ends in kind of a Twilight Zone-esque way, which is really interesting. in terms of what the mystery was and like why they went through all this in the first place, what the deal was. There's always like a hint of like something biblical was going on. We don't necessarily get it spelled out for us, but we do get like a resolution to what exactly happened. So it was. I guess it's worth the ride, but just given the amount of episodes, I don't know like how worthy of the ride is. But then again, like you like the people in, you're kind of in terms for the thing. I don't know if maybe at the end of the day we could, if we trimmed down the episodes, maybe we would have arrived here faster. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, in hindsight, just for this season itself, I think we should have made these part 1, part 2, like 8 episodes instead of 10 episodes. But yeah. Manifest was good. Manifest has always been a really good, at least a very watchable show. It was very much like a TV show you tune in for. It's basically like a digestible version of Lost. I guess would be having not seen Lost. I'd imagine it's the more digestible one.
I still think you'd get something out of Lost. I really do, honestly. But
anyway.
All right, I'm gonna just go over this next one just really quick. F-Zero GP Legends. I actually love the F-Zero games. It's one of my favorite Nintendo franchises. I'm one of those people. Every Nintendo Direct, I'm like, well, we're not going to get a new F-Zero game, but it'd be great if we did. And this was fun. It was essentially just like basically Dragon. It's basically like a modern speed racer kind of. And it does do this really weird thing where the main character is like he's in a coma and then he wakes up in the future, and I don't really like that. I don't think he's in the games either. I really feel like he's just kind of like meant to be like an audience surrogate character of like, oh, you're experiencing this futuristic world for the first time, just like the main character is. But I don't know. It's like, first of all, they don't really linger on the drama of, like waking up in a different time period like they really should. It's distracting, but I do think that the action itself is pretty fun. I love how they handle Captain Falcon. Captain Falcon is like the one character that everyone knows from
Anthony Mackie's in this show.
No. Because he's in Captain Falcon's in Smash Brothers, so everyone knows him. And I love how they handle him because he's basically just like this very stoic, almost like Racer X style, like rival racer to the main character. And it's one of those things where it's like he doesn't show up that often, but when he does, it's like a big deal. So I love that element of the show. I do think that ultimately it's pretty, it's pretty much just like what you'd expect. It's a 4-kid style Nintendo anime, but for what it is, it's fun. I enjoyed it. Nothing very substantial, but as a fan of the video games, I enjoyed seeing like the stoic, mysterious Captain Falcon. All right. And finally, we got a lot of catch up, so let's kind of go through it quickly because we're almost at 3 hours.
Yep.
All right, so Duel, I mean, goddamn, it just blew my mind, Dragon. Seriously.
It lived up to the hype.
So much.
Lived up to the hype. It's Proto Jaws with kind of a Twilight Zone vibe to it. It's great psychodrama. It has dangerous 70s practical effects. The phone booth, particularly.
Oh yeah.
Yep, and again, it's a great first effort for Spielberg. You see this movie, you buy that guy's gonna get work based on this.
yeah.
He's gonna go places that the Fableman kid.
All right, Sugarland Express. It's a solid little movie. Some pretty good character development.
Good camera angles.
Yeah,
really good,
really good ending. Really good last act in general.
Yeah. True.
1941. Honestly, Dragon. The more I think about 1941, the more I appreciate it. Believe it or not.
I mean, look, with 1941, I think in a similar way, it lived up to the hype, only in the negative. It was pretty bad. However, in learning about 1941, I do appreciate what it was going for, and I appreciate
the ambition behind it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And again, Eddie Dietz does, like, genuinely, that character, just thinking about that character kind of cracks me up. That character really did get to me as far as just the comedy goes. And just the practical effects, I did not expect the last act of this movie to be, like, on the same caliber of blockbuster as, like, any of his other blockbusters. I really didn't.
At the end of the day, it feels like the comparison I have is that Spielberg is making a loud, fun movie with his friends, but ultimately, despite having the production values and the trappings, it's not really a Spielberg movie. It's a movie that happens to be directed by Steven Spielberg.
Well, I mean, like I said, I feel like it feels more like just like a Brat Pack collaboration more than anything else.
Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, it's a movie that it's not really. It's not really a story.
It doesn't really feel directed by anyone because it's so chaotic.
Exactly, right? All right. So, let's see. I think coming up... yeah, go on. I spaced it out a little bit. You go on.
Okay.
This one.
All right, so Twins. Dragon, I agree. It's Schwarzenegger's best performance.
I'm not crazy, right? Is it good?
Not. He is so endearing in this movie.
But how lovely
my God, I love him.
But overall, how do you feel about the movie?
It's fun. I will say I do think the blackmail plot is a little bit like, I don't know, it's a little overly convoluted. Not necessarily convoluted, but just the fact that we shift gears from he's being black or not. I don't know.
Yeah, not blackmail to you, just the whole
the loan shark thing. I just feel like the one thing about the movie that feels a little disconnected to me is I feel like there's a bit too many steps as far as he owes the money and then he's going to do this job for $5 million, but then he has to bring Arnold along and then he gets attached to Arnold and it's fine. I do like the fact that they don't really drag out the love interests all that much.
They're pretty established. That's the thing. They're pretty established love interests, which kind of cuts down on the issue there.
I really like that. I really like. Yeah. So
nice. Is the idea? The only one love interest is going to be our newly introduced character and the Schwarzenegger character, so it plays.
And who's not going to fall in love with specifically this version of Arnold Schwarzenegger?
That's the thing. So, I tell you, but seriously. I just want to gush and just how wonderful Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this movie. I mean, I love just the whole movie. Ivan Reitman did this, of course, who did did Dave and Ghostbusters, and is a wonderful director. And isn't this such a comfy, cozy movie?
Oh, it very much is, yeah.
And just the idea that that Schwarzenegger is just playing this innocent kind of nubile kind of guy coming to the city, and he just loves after he makes the initial wait, is that's him. After that initial double take, he's head over heels for his brother. He'll die for his brother. And the fact that he uncompromisingly wants to be there for the Dan DeVito character, despite saying we're twins, not identical twins. Oh, really? It's this the cynic and the optimist, and just they combine each other so well. But seeing him stick up for him in places, not only just saving his bacon physically, but that moment in the movie where. We have Doctor I forget what his name is, but we have the doctor with the glasses and the mustache that we break down his door and we get some answers.
Fucking mustache.
Seriously, though, we have that moment where he basically says he reveals that that the Dan DeVito character Vincent is essentially the leftover crap from the experiment. He's the leftover crap from what created the perfect human and the Arnold Schwarzenegger character and Julius, and just that moment where he comforts his brother after he threatens the guy and he walks in, but it's just that I love how shell shocked DeVito's character is, despite how he hasn't been vulnerable for the entire movie really, and just that moment he's just truly shell shocked to his core, and his brother is there to comfort. And I just love the way that scene plays, all these little intimate moments that we have between them, is the genuine brotherly love, and it's just delight. I love it so much.
Yeah, and as far as this versus Kindergarten Cop, I truly think this blows Kindergarten Cop out of the water.
And look, I like Kindergarten Cop.
It's been a long time since I watched Kindergarten Cop.
I rewatched it because I haven't
seen it since I was a kid. But
that one I don't think has a time limit on Netflix. So you might want to rewatch that one just while it's still around, just for fun. But I think I like Kindergarten Cop, but to me it does not hold candle to Twins, and yet Kindergarten Cop's going to get all the love because it's Arnold and kids. What's not to love? It's that's cute and that's nice, but still, I mean, look at that. Twins.
Yeah.
Also, our boy's in it, Tony J.
Yeah.
Just want to get that in there. Okay.
Okay, Kiki's Delivery Service. Yeah, I actually saw this for on the big screen for Studio Ghibli Fest, and I knew it was coming up on the big screen, which is kind of why I held off on seeing it. And I mean, like, I'm not going to put it up there with the likes of something like Spirited Away or Mononoke, just because it's not as ambitious as one of those movies. But I will say, as far as like the slice of life Miyazaki movies, it doesn't get much better than this. As much as I love Porco Rosso, I think this is a little bit better than Porco Rosso. It's got very similar vibes, though, because Dragon, you know me, I'm a sucker for a seaside town or anything that's coastal. Like those sorts of atmospheres and environments just really get to me. And this has a coastal town, and I fucking love the atmosphere. I will say I wasn't crazy about the little boy character in this movie. I think he's a little obnoxious.
Really? I didn't think it was obnoxious at all.
I thought he was a little obnoxious. Tombo is his name, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of like from a distance, it sounds like Tomboy, but yeah, it's Tombo.
Right. I think he was a little like, I don't know. The one moment in this movie that did really emotionally get to me was the moment where he and Kiki are hanging out together at the beach, and then all of his friends come, and he's like wanting Kiki to meet all his friends. And she's got the social anxiety. I'm like, yeah, damn, I've been there. I've been in that exact same predicament.
Think about like how rare that is that we would address that like then, like
it's great. It's
a
great.
Miyazaki movie. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this is also my first time watching it too. I wanted to get that in there too. I'd seen parts. Here's the thing: I always wanted to see Kiki's Delivery Service because I remember like the Dragon Ball tapes back when I see the ads for this. It was like, man, movie,
exactly.
That movie looks really good. And I didn't really have the facilities, and I kept meaning to get to it. And
I'm pretty damn sure that the trailer for this was in that aforementioned Garlic Jr. set.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure too. Yeah, but that's the thing. So I found this utterly delightful for pretty much the same reasons. Again, honestly, I would compare this to Totoro in terms of like this has what I wanted in Totoro.
I think this is a little better than Totoro.
Again, Totoro's the test. Totoro's the litmus test. It's the testing ground. It's the prototype. And this is like as we get the Miyazaki films that follow that, we're massaging out the form of storytelling, especially with the slice of life story in terms of like, okay, there's at least a direct through line about what happens with her, and we can track it. And like, it's pretty simple. And it's her losing her gift as she.
I really love those themes. I find the message in this movie to be super relatable. It's, I don't know. She's such an endearing character.
And here's the thing that baffles me, man. The critics never everyone's always saying, "Oh yeah," and then there's Kiki's Delivery Service, the boring one. Like no,
no, that's factually incorrect.
It's like boring in a good way. Like no,
this is gonna be sacrilege, but like if anything, fucking Totoro is the boring one.
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. But it's you know why Totoro gets so loved? Because it has the iconic visual of the rain scene. Yep. We have a great rain scene in this too, by the way. Miyazaki's got a rain fetish, but nothing against that. Nothing wrong.
Speaking of rain, I will say I don't think this is quite on the level as Ponyo, which you probably disagree with.
I mean, I like this more than Ponyo, but
I think I like Ponyo a little bit better than that.
Admittedly, I have to rewatch Ponyo because
I just recently rewatched Ponyo on the big screen. So
how did it hold up to you?
Wonderfully.
Okay. Maybe I'll change my tune for a rewatch. I don't know.
It also just major shout out to Phil Hartman, probably the best English dub casting of all of the Miyazaki movies. All right. Kogias says, I'm not, is that Kogias?
Yeah, Gias, you said it right. Yes,
yeah. Okay. Kiki's Delivery Service used to have a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And yeah, I think all the critics like it. I think the problem
it's like
is that it sometimes gets lumped in as like Ghibli is one of those studios where it's like they really beyond like a few that people, like Earwig and the Itch and basically the Goro Miyazaki movies are the only bad ones. Other than that, they're all really, really stellar. So it's like what Dragon's saying is not necessarily that the critics don't like it. It's just that they're don't necessarily have it in like the top tier.
I mean, the audiences that rank these sort of things are always like, always kind of like throwing, like taking pot shots at in terms of like, yeah, it's just a girl in a broom. Like, what's fancy about that?
All right.
All right, that's you.
Okay, Purple Rain. Have you ever seen this?
Tell me this is a Prince documentary.
No, it's the actual movie, Purple Rain.
Oh, right. Sorry. I guess part of me was hoping that maybe I guess that wouldn't have made any sense to it. Part of me is I'm still waiting on that Kevin Smith documentary to be released. Because the word is that it might be happening. I know this wasn't it, but a part of me was wondering, is there another Prince documentary we just call it Purple Rain? But no, it's the actual thing.
So, Dragon, I'm genuinely worried to talk about this movie just because I'm worried that the fictional character of Jay is somehow going to hear me talking bad about this movie and come beat me up.
Well, if he does, we'll get him on the podcast. Take the beating.
But I really didn't like this, man. I really didn't. The only reason I saw it is it was playing, like my local theater does like a flashback cinema thing every Wednesday and Sunday, and my grandma wanted to go see it. I was like, all right, why not? I haven't seen it. Let's see how it is. Dragon, here's the thing, like, I'm not really that big of a fan of Prince's music just because I feel like the production, like the steel drums and stuff, it's very 80s. It's very, very 80s. I'm not huge on 80s music just in general. So it's good music, but I honestly, Dragon, one thing I will give Jay credit for, Morris Day and the Times, out of the two, between Prince in this movie and Morris Day in the Times, first of all, Morris Day, easily the most entertaining part of this movie. He's like the one person in this movie who actually has any sort of like camera presence to him. Prince himself is a really weird Dragon. Prince himself is very incredibly problematic and creepy in this movie. Like, there are some interactions he has with women in this movie that are just kind of make my skin crawl a little bit. And the reason it makes my skin crawl is because in the movie itself, it's very much like he is basically just being an outright dick to these women. And the movie plays it up like, oh, he's so mysterious. And it's like, no. And I don't know. The movie itself, it's partly autobiographical. Like the character of Prince is just called the Kid. Like that's all everyone refers to him as. It's just the Kid, which is kind of weird. But he lives at home, and this is autobiographical. He lives at home with his dad was abusive towards his mother, and I feel like what the movie is trying to do is it's trying to kind of like lay this groundwork of like, oh, he's taking after his dad with the way that he treats women. The problem is that there's no real arc for that. It's just kind of what is happening in the movie, and there's no real moment of him realizing the error of his ways or people calling him on it. It's just kind of like, yeah, that's what's happening. I don't know, man. This was hard to sit through. I'm not gonna lie. It was very uncomfortable. And like I said, again, the one thing I will give Jay credit for is Morris Day is genuinely very entertaining. And every time he was on screen, I feel like I kind of perked up a little bit. So I'll give it that. All right. Believe it's on you.
Yes, let me tell you about Tina. So yeah, I felt a little guilty when Tina Turner passed. I really didn't know diddly squat about her, so I wanted to remedy that. I saw the documentary about her on Max, and it's really good. It was really in depth. I mean, after it's kind of interesting when you start the thing off. Now they have like a whole memory of Tina Turner at the top. It's kind of like a retroactive thing just with the airing. I mean, this thing was made in like 2021, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's basically her life story in 5 acts. It's really good. I mean, the best thing to zero in on here is its most interesting aspect is it's her conquering her abuser and getting out from under Ike's shadow. It's basically like one, it's like dealing with the abuse and then getting out from it. But then the most interesting aspect is like, okay, her whole career and her whole success right now is basically her trying to not be linked in the same sense. Because it used to be Ike and Tina everywhere. I mean, you think about Jingle All the Way, which, by the way, I'm peeved that wasn't mentioned at all in that Schwarzenegger documentary. You think about Sinbad saying, "We can be a team. Like I can Tina. Only Tina left. Never mind." It's like if only we it's like it's her getting that from under that guy's shadow. And I'll tell you, man, when you watch the documentary, the you see him being interviewed about her, and he's like archival clips of him interviewing about her, and it's eerie, man. It's eerie, just him like just speaking about her with like no remorse at all, and still trying to be the hero of that story. It's like it's uncomfortable in the right way. It's uncomfortable, like, oh man, you dirtbag. It's just like like it's like a movie bad guy or something, but it's it's weird. So, but yeah, it's I mean, look, it's not like I don't really go in for music documentaries often, so I wouldn't say it's like the best one I've ever seen. It's no Paul Williams still alive, but it is it summarizes the importance of Tina Turner and the talent there for sure. So it was good. I didn't learn about her, so that was good as well. So
Okay. Alrighty, let's see. Next up, we have Under the Silver Lake, aka the A2423. I'm sorry, is it it's A24? I should know that.
Yeah, it's 2014.
I should know that.
I don't even like the movies, and I know that.
This is the A24 movie that A24 is kind of embarrassed about and doesn't really want you to see. I thought it was okay. It's essentially a neo-noir starring Andrew Garfield. And Andrew Garfield is essentially like a slacker conspiracy theorist. And the whole movie is him sort of like slowly unraveling this giant conspiracy around Hollywood. And it is very much one of those like LA movies that kind of like marinates in the LA, like the fakeness of the LA culture. A lot of LA locations pop up. And I will say that as far as like the actual plot goes, it's a little bit of a mess. Like as far as like A24 goes, this is on the lower end. I will say that this is one of the better Andrew Garfield performances, though. I did think this was a very good Andrew Garfield performance. There is one moment in the movie that really does stick with me, though, which is it's so hard to even explain how he gets to this point, but he ends up at the mansion of this very old and decrepit songwriter. And the idea is that this is the one guy who has literally written all of popular music throughout all of time. And it's a very interesting scene. Like it's a really well acted scene. There's this one moment where he starts to play the piano chords of the Pixies' Where Is My Mind? And Garfield kind of like perks up like, no, not that one. And he's like, there's one, like the guy's just taunting him like, yeah, I'm behind every song that you've ever loved. It was all me. And that was a really good standalone scene. You could probably look that scene up on YouTube. Just look up Under the Silver Lake Songwriter. But the movie as a whole, kind of a mess. It's very meandering. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Inherent Vice, that Paul Thomas Anderson movie with I believe it was Joaquin Phoenix as kind of like this private eye in Hollywood. Very much the same sort of vibe. So not really a strong recommendation, but I do recommend that songwriter scene. That songwriter scene is some good shit.
Okay.
All right.
Let me tell you about Creed 3.
I will admit I'm a little the Jonathan Majors thing is the big like I don't know separating art from the artist and whatnot.
So this is before all that happened anyway. So
okay, just because it's before all that happened doesn't mean it's.
Well, even so, here's the thing. Look, even if here's the thing. If anyone is perturbed by the Jonathan Majors thing, good news is he gets crappy out of them. So.
Right.
That's fair. Act, there you go. So if you got a problem with it, karma. Anyway, so here's the thing. So Creed 3, this is Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, and he did a solid job. It's a solid entry. Look, not as compelling as the first two films, obviously. I mean, especially the fact there's no Rocky at all in this. But that's the thing. We're taking the training wheels off the Rocky, so we're seeing if we could see some of that. Here's the thing. I think you'll find the Creed trilogy is strong. We said we didn't end weak, but we ended solid. But it's not amazing. It's very well shot. Majors, he's very imposing. He's very formidable. I'm iffy on the way in which we reveal backstory in this, because we do kind of a flashback structure in which you kind of know exactly, kind of the Hunters thing you brought up earlier. It's kind of where it's going. A little telegraphed. It just feels like it's not really much of a reveal. And also there's another plot point that was really telegraphed to me, where I was saying, okay, this is pretty straightforward here, and didn't help the market. The marketing pretty much spoiled this for me. Basically, it didn't seem like a reveal you would want to really make a big deal about, but we kind of did, and I guess the marketing kind of like nipped that in the bud. The whole thing, like, okay, so I think it stands to reason the opponent of the Rocky movie is going to be the bad guy, unless it's Apollo Creed, which in this movie would be really difficult to pull off, given we killed him off in Rocky movies ages ago.
Zombies, man, we're going zombies now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, with the exception of Apollo Creed, all the opponents Rocky's going up against have been bad.
Imagine if fucking like Adonis Creed has to fight his zombified father.
Oh god. No, seriously, think about it. In all the Rocky movies, the only time our bad guy, the only time we haven't had a bad guy is 1 to 2 exceptions. It's Apollo Creed, because again, he's not bad; he's just his opponent, and Balboa. Just the guy wasn't evil; he was just all the other times.
I would even say that Apollo Creed, he wasn't evil by any means, but he was definitely the antagonist.
Well, that's the thing. We've had antagonists, so I think in this case we have one who's like an actual, he's an antagonist, but primarily he is, he's doing some villainous things here. Where Damien, the character, he essentially, I was so delighted, by the way, that we brought back Victor Drago, the Ivan Drago's son, who essentially was the opponent in Creed 2.
I haven't even seen Creed 2.
I like Creed 2, man. Coogler didn't direct it, so it's not not as great as the first Creed, but it's also good. And yeah, it's point being, the idea is like, after that fight, we redeemed Victor Drago, so he's friends with he's friends with Donnie, so it was nice. And anyway, so point being, like, Drago's like poised to fight somebody, and Jonathan Majors is behind this conspiracy to cripple Drago during like a bar fight sometime.
Can I ask one thing about Jonathan Majors?
What do you got?
Is there any sort of negative stuff with him and women in the movie?
I mean, not really. I mean,
okay, thank God.
I mean, I don't know. He's kind of flirty, but not in a bad way.
But I'm saying, like, there's like, he doesn't have like a girlfriend that he mistreats or anything.
No,
right?
no. All that happens is, like, he meets he meets the Tessa Thompson character. He's nice and cordial at first. Like, there's like, maybe kissing the hand. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's being nice. Anyway, but yeah, so I love the scenes with with Creed and his daughter. I mean, those are really nice. We're kind of seeing that the daughter has, like, I believe, a hearing impairment, so that's kind of seeing some nice stuff there. She wants to be a fighter like her dad, but obviously the mother's not crazy about it. So there's a little bit like some shades of Muhammad Ali in there with that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the issue of the film for me is that it's kind of Donnie with first world problems, which admittedly is what Rocky 3 also goes up against. So they're obvious parallels to Rocky 3.
Rocky 3 is fucking glorious.
That's what I'm saying. The Rocky, look, it's not a contest. Rocky 3 is better. Okay, it's not a contest. The point being, though, is that here's the thing. One thing that we do in this movie, I wish was in Rocky 3, at least a little bit more in Rocky 3, is that for the third act, we established in the movie way early on, like at the top of the movie, Creed retires. Retires from boxing at the top of his game, and the idea is, like, he has to then fight Jonathan Majors in the third act. And we acknowledge, like, yeah, you sustained a lot of damage just in 2 Rocky movies. Just imagine what Rocky went through. But you've sustained legitimate fighting damage in 2 movies. You really shouldn't do this. So they list out, like, almost like that scene in Dark Knight Rises where the doctor listed all, like, the scar tissue and everything on Bruce Wayne. We kind of list that out there. I kind of wish we did that in Rocky 3 to Rocky to add extra stakes for him getting back getting in the ring. Like,
that's not the type of movie that Rocky 3 was, though.
That's true. So the fact is, I mean,
Rocky 3 is a masterpiece because it is so camp.
I guess what I'm getting is I like the fact that there's, like, some physical stakes for Donnie here, as well as emotional stakes with the fact that, oh man, he might be really damaged after this fight. This is he's doing, and the best aspect with the Majors character in this film is that he outmaneuvers him strategically, and that he puts him in a position where he gets his revenge and he can't fix it with punches. And admittedly, ultimately, in the third act, we fix it with punches. So it's kind of, but just the initial premise of he puts him in a position where in public opinion, it's like, hey, I got one over on you and you can't take it away. You made me a champion here. So thank you, buddy. I screwed you over, but you can't take this away from me.
Mm-hmm.
But then we ultimately can't take it away from him. So I don't know. So that's what it is. But look, again, it's, the writing wise could be a little tighter there, but again, it's not bad though. It's solid, but if you overthink it, it's like, yeah, we did kind of solve things with punches at the end of the day. But it's kind of the Rocky formula at a certain point. It's like, well, we kind of have there's a mandate, but it's not a bad mandate.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a lot worse. So let me this way. I hope we don't go the full Rocky comparison. Like we don't want Creed to go 7 movies and then pass it on to a younger crew. We don't want the cycle to go on and on. Just like ended at 3, ended at a solid 3. This one feels kind of definitive. I don't want them to do a spinoff with the daughter becoming a boxer. I know they're going to be tempted to do that. Just leave it where it's at right now. Leave it with and she might follow in her father. Isn't that kind of cute? Like just leave it there.
Mm.
Anyway.
Okay. Alrighty then, getting close to the end here. Host 2020. This is very much a pandemic movie in a really interesting way because this was made entirely on Zoom, and the whole gimmick of it is that all these people have been on, it's very. Dragon, it's a weird movie to watch because it very much does remind you of exactly what lockdown was like, where it's like all these people are on lockdown and they're just desperate to get some sort of social connection, some sort of entertainment in their lives. So essentially the premise is that they're all gathering together on Zoom to do a seance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say shit goes terribly, terribly wrong. I could go through the beats, but it's just all you need to know is that once shit starts happening, there is very much an escalation of events, and it is very suspenseful. It's well done. There is the plot hole though that none of them ever try to just turn off the computers, because essentially they realize that they have by doing the seance, they have latched on to an evil spirit. It's pretty cliche in that way. How it's done is really well done. But there is the issue of okay, if you conjured the evil spirit via the internet and via the computers, again, it kind of runs into that found footage problem of why are these people still recording? Because it's they're literally just at a certain point, they're literally just running with their laptops and that's nah. I do think the last act kind of falls apart in that way, but it's got some good scares. And I will say that as a horror movie done entirely on, on a computer screen, I think it's probably the best one I've seen. It's a lot better than the Unfriended movies. So it's not as good as something like Searching, don't get me wrong, but it's solidly better than the Unfriended movies. Also, I should mention it's done by the same guy who did Boogeyman, as is Dashcam. So that's why I saw those 2 movies this month. So, yeah. All right. What is your mystery movie?
Renfield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did the cop stuff feel as out of place to you as it did to me?
Well, let me get to it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
See, I really was aching to see Renfield, but it was one of those things where I wasn't going to go out to the theaters to see it. I was waiting for it to stream, and finally it streamed. So, again, seeing Nick Cage's Dracula was always the big. That is such an interesting thing, I guess, especially as a traditional Dracula, at least a takeoff from the traditional Dracula. It's something that we got to see. So, I think the premise of this film is ingenious, and I think it starts very strong. And of course, I like Nick Holt, who, by the way, was one of the Superman contenders. I was rooting for him, especially after this movie. Nick Holt's got range. No one ever gives him enough credit. Yeah, I could have seen.
He's also going to be in the Nosferatu remake, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, so I could have seen him as Superman, but I mean the kid they went with, he shows potential, but still Nick Holt was I was hoping for him and Rachel Brosnahan, but still he was also in the running for the Pattinson Batman, but
Mm-hmm.
Point being, Holt's really good in this. I think he's a great lead always. I think the makeup effects on Cage were amazing.
Oh yeah,
especially when we have like the dilapidated, we have the dummy. We have
surprising amount of screen time in that state too.
I love that we have that puppet too when he becomes emulated by the sun. We have that looks like Nick Cage. Anyway, so everything's great until Ben Schwartz walks in.
Yep. He pretty much ruins the movie.
I know. I'm so often I'm coming down on Ben Schwartz. Like the only after the first season.
In this case, though, you're entirely justified.
Yeah, it's like I've always been like after the first season of DuckTales of Ben Schwartz, like it was never a certainty, It's always it's like, I mean, I said nice things about him as Sonic, and then
there's no reason why he should even be in this movie. That's what drives me crazy. I feel like if the plot of this movie was just Renfield and the support group, and then Dracula demanding that Renfield, kill all the nice people, like that is more than enough of a plot. And honestly, Awkwafina isn't as grating as I thought she'd be, but she feels kind of pointless too.
Let me tell you where the movie went wrong.
Okay.
So, for starters, I mean, the inclusion of Ben Schwartz, but no, seriously. I'm kidding. It's nothing personal against Schwartz. It's just this is one of these examples of, this is the worst of Schwartz.
I still think on some level it's the Earth to Ned thing with you.
No, that was serendipity. I swear, that was serendipity, okay? That was serendipity. No, but seriously, there's a show in which I hate Ben Schwartz, and that happened before.
All right, fair enough.
Point bit. So we have the reason Ben Schwartz is in the movie, and the reason we have the crime, the mob aspect, the mobster aspect. The real reason it's in the movie is so we can have action set pieces, and particularly so we can have people that Renfield and Dracula can either eat or beat the crap out of terribly, commit violence against. It's the only reason we have a criminal element in this movie. So, which I mean, I get to a point, but still, here's the problem: is making this Ben Schwartz mobster like a head honcho and making him dumb as a sack of bricks to the point where literally he is throwing bricks of cocaine at cops.
He's a pathetic mama's boy. I mean, that's all he is.
And that's the thing. And this is where the Awkwafina suffers, and it's not her fault. It's the fact that we stick her with a plot line in which we made everything too cartoony in the sense of the crime and the corruption, like part of her character thing, where it's like, hey, there's no way all the cops in this precinct are bending to the mob this obviously. I mean, the guy literally just walked out of there. He threw cocaine at them.
Exactly.
There's no getting around that. I don't care how stupid the guy is. And so what we should have done is just, ideally we should have, one, just not have the Ben Schwartz mobster and just replace him with someone better. But secondly, what we should have done is just have the subversion, like, okay, we're gonna have a dumb mobster, the movie's gonna be stink, and then they have Dracula suck him dry instantly, right after we introduce the mobster, the big Renfield scene, he gets away, and we think, oh, we're gonna be sad with this guy the whole movie, and then Dracula shows up and drains him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we should have done. We should have subverted the idiot we're stuck with trope. So I love the director working this is Chris McKay. I like his style. He directed the Lego Batman movie. Yeah, I mean, look, overall, the movie is it's fun and it has a fun irreverency about it. Every time we have Renfield and Dracula on screen, I think we're doing really great stuff. The fact they're recontextualizing their relationship is gold. The whole abusive, toxic relationship thing. That's great. It's just again, we have a lot of disposable bodies in the film that just kind of leads to some cool action sequences, but ultimately it's distracting from the core relationship stuff, which is really interesting. Not a relationship between him and the cop, but a relationship between him and Dracula. Mm-hmm. So I like how it's a nice and optimistic arc for Renfield. It's got that aspect of it I thought was really good because I'm rooting for Renfield from the beginning. I thought it was really close to being something really special. I just wish, I wish there was another draft of the script and we could have saved this movie, man.
Which, again, that's so frustrating because I feel like that's sort of the exact same sentiment I have with Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
little bit, but I think it's a little worse here.
I agree. It is a little bit worse here. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I'm just gonna speed run through these last three.
Mm.
Okay. Well, I might spend a little bit more time on Sanctuary because it's a little bit more substance there. But Dash Cam. This is done by the same director as Host and The Boogeyman. And out of the three movies, it is like far and away the worst. Like far and away the worst. I kind of hated this movie. It's done it's done in a found footage style. The dash cam is very, accurate because you're literally just following the dash cam of this very unlikable character who's essentially like a YouTube, like she's a DJ, it's hard to explain. Like she streams and it's this very cringe thing where it's like in the comments, people shout out random words to her in the comments that she works into raps, and it's so fucking cringe. And what's even more cringe is that this lady is basically just like, I don't know, she's just like one of those one of those people, like it's shot during COVID. It's another kind of COVID horror movie. And she's one of those people where it's like, you can't tell me not to wear a mask. And it's basically a movie of that kind of shit. It's basically a movie of like this person just going around being a total terror to people. And it is just so unlikable and so uncomfortable. And it's one of the most unpleasant movies. I had a hard time getting through it. She's just such an unlikable personality. And it's like, and literally it's one of those movies where it's like the horror, like there's not a lot of supernatural elements to it. The horror just kind of comes from just how shitty of a person this main character is, but it's like it's a chore to sit through. Like I understand what they were going for, but at the end of the day, an unlikable character is an unlikable character, So yeah, this fell flat for me, and I was excited about it because I watched it after I watched Host, which I really liked, and I really liked Boogeyman as well. I'm not over the moon about Boogeyman, but I did like it. So yeah, man. Jesus. I'm also gonna speed run You Hurt My Feelings and then end on Sanctuary because I have the most to say about Sanctuary. Right. You Hurt My Feelings. This is another A24 movie, but it does not feel like A24 at all. Weirdly, Dragon, it's another Julia Louis-Dreyfus middle-aged relationship movie. Kind of in the same vein as Downfall, or I'm sorry, not Downfall. That's a much different movie. Downhill, yes. Downfall is the Hitler movie that became a meme for a while there. Remember when that was a meme? Like everyone would do different subtitles for that Hitler rant. Anyways, I digress. So the whole basic premise of this movie is that Julia Louis-Dreyfus is a writer, and she finds out that her husband has been lying to her about the fact that, he actually does not like the book that she has written and is trying to publish. But, it's like one of those things where, as the husband, she's like, oh, your book's great, honey, I love it. But then she overhears the conversation, and it's sort of like just the trust issues with that. And Dragon, if that sounds like kind of a boring premise for a movie, you're right. I don't know. I was honestly excited about this one just because it's A24 and it got good reviews. But yeah, it does not feel like an A24 movie. Like it doesn't even feel like an A24 drama because A24 has done really good dramas before. Like they did Moonlight, for example. And this just feels like a very standard, I don't know, studio comedy. It does not feel A24 at all. And I just to sing the praises of Downhill again, Downhill is a damn good movie, and I don't know why no one talks about that movie and why everyone shat on it when it came out. This movie just made me appreciate Downhill because it's basically tackling the same sort of themes as Downhill with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, just doing it in a way more boring way. All right, and finally we have Sanctuary. This is a thriller movie. It's basically a one-location movie with two characters. It's about a dominatrix and her rich client who is trying to end the business relationship between him and her. because he is about to become CEO of this really powerful company, and he essentially can't afford to potentially be found out that he's engaging in this, in this BDSM kind of activity. And essentially the whole movie is just her blackmailing him into giving her a position in the company or a sum of money, because it's like, look, I've got tapes. Like, you're not going to get away. You're not going to leave me that easily. And essentially she like relies on him for income. So there's a lot of push and pull and sort of power dynamics. It's a really great exploration of power dynamics and gender roles. And I liked it quite a bit. It has a really great ending. Like, I feel like the ending really just ties everything up together in a really nice sort of bow. It's almost like a punchline kind of an ending. Like, that's what they were going for the whole time. That's awesome. I don't think you'd like it, though. I really don't. Also, the main actress, the actress playing the dominatrix, she looks so familiar, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and I'm so glad I didn't until after the movie, because if I would have recognized her in the movie, I think I would have been very uncomfortable with the role she was playing. Dragon, it's the teenage daughter from The Leftovers.
Really?
Yeah. And you can imagine, like, I am so glad I didn't realize that in the movie. So yeah, I mean, it's like, honestly, if the premise intrigues you, give it a shot. I doubt the premise intrigues you, but I liked it quite a bit. I would give it a 7 out of 10. I do think it's one of those movies that would probably work better as a stage play than it does as an actual film. But like I said, I do really like the ending, and it is a really interesting kind of exploration of gender dynamics and kind of power dynamics. So yeah, I would recommend it, but I could certainly see it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea. I could certainly see people not liking it. All right, Dragon. And after a very long memoirs, let's do our best and worst.
All right. Best, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Worst, 1941.
Oh, come on. I mean, I get it, but
I mean, of the ones that I have, Tiki, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Like,
I think I just saw way worse movies this month.
Yeah, that's the thing, Tiki. You always see worse movies than I do. Again,
right?
I try to avoid the bad movies. So, it's like, 941. Yeah, it's the clunker.
Okay, so for me, best. Honestly, Dragon, I think I'm gonna go Duel. Like, I'm between Asteroid City and Duel, but like Duel is up there. Like, Duel really amazed me. And Asteroid City, like, I've seen it twice. It is currently my favorite Wes Anderson movie, but I don't know. I just think Duel is just a stone cold classic. I am gonna go Duel.
Duel is great. So, I mean, if I went more historical, I might have said Duel. But I mean, it's SpiderVerse, man.
Yeah. And then worst, I mean, for a long time, it was going to be, it was going to be, I'm sorry, Purple Rain. I'm sorry. But, no, I saw, Dash Cam, and yeah, Dash Cam was a genuinely painful to even sit through. So, yeah, I gotta give it to Dash Cam with like an honorable mention to Purple Rain. Okay, and let's just go over the July movies really quick once again. This coming weekend, we have Insidious: The Red Door and Joyride. I think I am definitely going to see Insidious. I'm gonna pass on Mission Impossible probably. What about you?
I mean, I used to have a friend who I would see the Mission Impossible stuff with, but he's not exactly free these days. So I mean, I will watch it when it streams, but I don't think I'm gonna watch it when it's in theaters. Not this time, especially if it's a part one.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. We have, of course, the 21st, the big Oppenheimer, Barbie. I mean, I'm genuinely stoked for both of those, more so for Barbie.
I'm looking forward to both, but I'm not going to be seeing Barbie in theaters. I will eventually see it, but I am absolutely seeing Oppenheimer in theaters. Yeah,
Fair enough. And then the 28th, we got the Haunted Mansion, which I'm going to support just because it's the Haunted Mansion. I have no idea. Go.
I mean, look, I'm kind of interested in seeing it, but definitely not theatrically.
Fair enough. All right, well, folks. And of course, just really quick, just big shout out to Code Gias Animathon and Richard's Victims, as always. All right, folks. Well, we've waxed on long enough, and it's time to put the pen down. Until next time, when we return for another fitting chapter in our Movie Memoirs. Oh my God! It's fucking Claude.